inhuman, so peculiar, we're too scared to make a change. Shock horror. Shock horror. Shock horror. Shock horror. We're falling in a trash can with everything else. From silicon to Brussels sprouts, you're down in the ground and off the shelf. It's so bloody. It's so bloody down. Everybody's out to get you and you're acting like it's strange. Cause being human so peculiar, we're too scared to make a change. Shock horror. Ha. Shock horror. Ha. Shock horror. Ha. Shock horror. Ha. Shock horror.
Live from the Benjamin Netanyahu Memorial Funeral Chapel and Kibbutz, this is the Library of Mass Destruction. I am your host, Capitalisimo, and joining me, as per usual, fresh from a super secret meeting of his own, is Mr. Christopher Sandbatch. How are you doing today, sir?
I mean, it's just like no secret. I've been in Arkansas. I've been all over the place lately, and I've been
You've been everywhere, man.
I've been everywhere, man. My live bit tonight says it's a 14 degrees and dropping in Manistee, Michigan, live from underneath a frozen moose statue at the Big Boy Diner. We're talking about Jeff Dahmer.
That's right. Jeffrey Dahmer, a Wisconsin boy. I think you mentioned recently that you dislike Wisconsin. And so, I don't dislike Wisconsin anymore. And I, as always, I guess it's like I'm like totally out of the bag. It's like being in the bag for the Old Glory Club. Half in the bag.
Well, I mean, you're all the way in there, shoving back in there every now and then. But we on the way back from Manistee, like I said, we hung out with the Wisconsin chapter in sunny Milwaukee, and it was wonderful. But the whole region, the whole upper Midwest, like I said, still gives me the creepies.
Why is it creepy? Like what's creepy about it? Different spirits of the land.
Yeah, the trees or the trees sing a different song.
Raumgeisten are somehow different in a way. I agree. I definitely agree with you. I have a split loyalties, of course, as a transplant, but my heart longs for the lakes and the rolling hills of Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Even though any cunning linguists would be able to tell exactly where I'm from my manner of speech. You certainly have enough samples of me speaking in order to tell where my particular vocal cords come from.
I didn't get it right either. I had to be given the answer.
I will tell you that my linguistics professor in college, my 101 linguistics professor, to prove that linguistics was incredibly specific in its predictive ability, right? Because there was a student who was there to fulfill their requirements, rather than because of any actual interest in it or in the topic and discipline. He had each student in the class, and there were like 20 people in there, read out a phrase, okay, and then he told everyone to within like 50 miles where they were from.
I can do that with Southern accents, but I can't do it. I can't do it with pretty much anyone else.
Yeah.
Wait, something else happened. Something else happened since we last met, which is that book I published shot straight to the top of the charts.
Wow.
New American poetry releases.
Amazing. What is your what
Stay
ranking?
there.
What ranking on Amazon are you?
New releases, it's still number one, I think.
In
But
poetry.
down to number,
Very good.
yeah, well, in American poetry. And but actually, I think I'm down to number 23 in total on American poetry, not new releases. But if you filter out the bullshit, like Amazon's poetry category includes The Great Gatsby and shit like that. If you filter
weird.
all that out, I think I'm still at I understand the way the knowledge graph behind Amazon works, and I understand why this happens. And it's stupid. But you all should go buy it and get me all the way to the top of American poetry and
get him. Make Sandbatch a top.
It would just be really funny. But however, if I would be willing to bet if 10 of you motherfuckers bought it right now, that would make me like $100. But the really funny, the really funny thing would be we could have some fun on Twitter. So yeah, sneak those super chats and buy my book.
Speaking of those super chats, Randall Shirker is out the gate with a $5 super chat. Another week, another DDD session of right-wing Twitter calling out due to people screaming out another round of playing in the sandbox. So yes, very, very true. The various predictions of catastrophe being changed every single day. The exact prognostications. Not that anything good is happening, but everyone's predictive power of is highly questionable. Let's see. Randall Shirker.
Chat is going really hard right out of the gate today.
It is great. I love to see it. Randall Shirker also for an additional $5 donuts. Also, we know that Sandbatch is mad because his meeting with Thiel failed to him lacking enough hours on Ethnoguesser. I think Sandbatch would actually do pretty well on Ethnoguesser. I think the issue with his Thiel meeting is that he was a top poet rather than a bottom poet. John E. Walt also sends a $5 super chat. Finally started. I got to chide these chodes for using DDD to get me habituated. And they're like late a minute. That's true. And look, I hit it. I hit the thing. I hit the go live button at exactly like 5 seconds after go time. Okay. It was 5 seconds late. Also,
cap the chided chode groiper.
The chided chode. I'm pretty sure chode is misspelled too, Johnny Walt. So if we're being pedantic, I'm gonna get you on spelling. Let's see. Sex Freakman. Any cunning linguist would easily get that info from your mom. She's a lonely woman. She has not been with a man in a long-term relationship for damn near 40 years. So I definitely would recommend any cunning linguist to go give her some relief. She has needs too. I care about my mother. There's just some things I can't do for her. So, anyone who wants to take a crack at the old broad, be my fucking guest. Just treat her right. I'm not going to call you dad.
14-year locust season is this year, so there's always a chance. Now, Sex Freakman also says, got to put best-selling author C. Sandbatch in all LMD episodes. I'm going to put it everywhere. You're going to be so sick of me.
With with the right-wing poet laureate. That's right.
No, that's Tom Will. I sold out. That's what happened.
That's right. That's right.
Yet. And Procrustes the Clown says, congrats to Sandbatch. Thanks for doing your part, Procrustes the Clown. And he says, it's great. Inspired me to take up considerably less impressive poetry myself. Always, that's the greatest thing in the world when another person becomes unemployed.
Hey, just you know what? Honestly, the best place to start with poetry. And honestly, look, I'm not much of a poetry appreciator. I do miss things. People like Tom Will and Sandbatch are much better at it. But I do have opinions on poetry, and they are slightly informed because I do read it on occasion. But I find English. Hold on. I find English poets to be very pleasing. So like, you know, if you want to get started with some like weird formatting and stuff, just like read a little Robert Service. He's fun. He's light, right? So just there are places to start. So yeah. I mean, actually, although you know what, I take it all back. I take everything I just said back. The best place to start is Christopher Sandbatch. The next best place to start is our good friend Tom Will. Then you can start with Robert Service and William Blake and everyone else. So,
an old blind, despised and dying king, princes of their own races who flow through public scorn, mud from a muddy spring, rulers who neither see nor feel nor know, but leech-like to their fainting country cling till they drop blind in blood without a blow. English poetry. The hell?
English.
I'm gonna kick you out of the group. I'm gonna kick you out of the group.
For liking English poetry?
No, I mean, that's my fucking undergraduate degree, so who am I kidding?
Wow.
We're supposed to be America. We're supposed to be America forward here on the Library of Mass Destruction.
We're supposed to be nationalists, but all we do is yeah.
Supposed to be nationalists, but all we do is talk about eating women and children.
That's right. And we're not Papua New Guinean nationalists. So yeah. Do you have anything else to share with the class before we get on with today's reading?
Let me think if there's anything else. Well, ladies, I'm back on the market.
He's on the market at a discount. I mean, maybe
severe discount at this point.
Severe discount. Bargain prices for sandy batches. So,
sandy batch.
I hope you like it dry, ladies.
Says Sandy Bachelor. I love it.
The Sandy Bachelor.
Penultimo says, I feel like I'm going to scare every hoe in a 10-mile radius if I start reading Sandy's poetry. It is absolutely not untrue that the sort of cover layout and design is designed to catch the attention of art hoes in left-wing coffee shops. So if you are a sensitive young man and you're having a tough time meeting the ladies, you know, it actually is a wonderful prop for what the kids last summer were calling performative reading.
I think you need some kind of illiterate farm girl.
Me?
Yeah, I think you do. I think you need someone who's not anything like you. I think you need to be like the city mouse who just like sneaks into the barn for a roll in the hay. That's your perfect match.
Speaking of
you need a woman who throws you over her shoulder like a hay bale.
Yeah, no, not that, but you know, I've never dated one. I've never dated a woman that was a writer as well. But you know what I really need? I need one of those. I need not a Subaru American, but a
lesbian?
No, what is the name of that outdoor store?
REI?
Yeah, I need an REI American.
Oh, you need like a. Okay, so the thing about REI is that it's crunchy, but it's crunchy in like a
down market way.
No, in an upmarket way. REI is always next to a Whole Foods, bro.
Yeah,
like, that's where they put them.
Whole Foods has fell off too. He likes them stanky. That is dangerously true. You're like,
God.
Oh man, he actually did read the book.
He just wants a. Yeah, you know what? I highly recommend that everyone buy Sandbatch's book. I have not read it, but I highly recommend everyone buy it.
But no, I mean,
oh, you know what? Here, check this out.
People have unironically posted pictures, and two separate people have told me that they've used it to start conversations with women, and That makes me
Really?
so happy. Yeah, it makes me
Really?
so happy.
You should just get a bunch of e-girls to post pictures of the book
I refuse.
with their
No,
bare feet on it.
I that's a good idea, actually. But it's like
I know it is.
Generally refuse to do that sort of plebeian self publicity. The work sells itself, you know.
The work sells itself, you know. This is when you get your most John Dee-ish. when discussing the process.
No, you know,
I did read a book that I want to talk about very briefly. I want to talk about very briefly because I read it and you mentioned Milwaukee. It is the most recent book published by Apocalypse Confidential. It's called Poltergeist. It's by Jocelyn with an unpronounceable last name that has a bunch of S's and Z's in it. And it is not great. It is actually AppCon's worst book. I just, you know, the show.
Never say we don't post L. Damn.
The show. So since the sidebar is so long delayed, yeah, I just want to get out there that, you know, it was a very Chunibyo kind of effort. Lots of amateurish writing mistakes and weird obscurantist, like phony profundity. She would just write herself into a corner several times and then pull something that seemed profound.
Things that I do that prevent me from doing that. Anything like that is I've only ever read one Penchon novel and I didn't think it was that great. But I think you probably also ash can most of your work, and I further believe that Poltergeist is a what does ash can most of your work mean?
I think you probably throw away the vast majority of things that you produce.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, there you go.
About 90%, yeah.
So, and I also think it used to be a screenplay. I think it used to be a screenplay that got knocked into a mediocre novella. So, well, sorry. AppCon does good work, but they can't all be winners. This one sucked.
Can't all be winners. Or a casual reminder: unless your name is Anna, you can't do Penchon. You can't do Penchon.
Oh, and I also read The Earth and Dark by Brad Kelly, which was a fucking
that
banger.
one's incredible. Yeah,
it was goddamn incredible. It's the best book I've read this year. So yeah, those are the two books I read in the last week. So
you know he's getting to the point where he's like almost like has to be like one of the great writers of the current generation, where he really is that good.
I think he's the thing about The Earth and Dark is that tonally and in terms of the prose, it's a lot. It's just as high level, but a lot cleaner than House of Sleep. Like it's much more engaging than House of Sleep was, and I liked House of Sleep as well. But
you know what? I'm getting requests from people because I get requests from people, and they're asking me to write sci-fi, and I thought this might actually be a good idea because I've read so little sci-fi that it's like naive melody in a way.
I think you'd write a Le Guin-esque sci-fi just because you
I think there was something that she wrote that I would have to it would actually probably end up coming up more like
Le Guin is the best feminist author, by the way.
Not even close. That's what I understand. Well, I think Mary Shelley is my favorite, but
do you think she actually wrote Frankenstein?
You
bought the line.
Yeah, you're going with the mainstream, your plan trusting line here from Sandbatch. But I think if I wrote sci-fi, it would come out. And I hate using, because if you self-publish a book, you have to do a lot of the gayest thing in the world you have to do is, because I also am opposed to the idea of just asking people to blurb things. So I had to write all my own promo copy and everything. So I had to
I
like
fucking love
talk.
blurbing things.
Yeah, maybe I'll have you do it next. I'll have like you and Hudson do the next one. But like, I really wanted like clean release, like just like total, like total.
That's what we're all looking for, bro.
Clean release, baby. Yeah, but
Clean release, baby.
I refuse to compare my work to anyone else's, and I refuse to draw analogies between my work and the work of other writers.
The anxiety of influence. Okay.
Well, you know, but I think if I wrote sci-fi, it would come out somewhere between Gene Wolfe and like Riders of the Purple Sage.
I got to tell you, one of the biggest tells for like this book is going to fucking suck is if someone says it's like Gene Wolfe. And I like Gene Wolfe. It's just that he's the guy that everyone wants to be like. And so
I don't really like his work that much is the thing. And so and the reason I don't like it that much is because I see there's a little bit too much of me in there.
The last two books that I read that are from people in our sphere that have said that their book is like Gene Wolfe have been so fucking bad I won't even name them.
Dude, what we need to do is stop saying in our sphere, because we are currently tearing up the fucking we're tearing up the global American poetry section on Amazon.com. Be sure to pick up your copy in Sneed super chats.
Sneed,
but like we're no longer in a milieu here.
Okay. Yes, you've broken us out. You've broken the glass ceiling. You are trailblazing the sensitive white man back into prominence. It's happening. There's not even a single poem in your collection about milking a minotaur. Like we are bringing back serious work to Amazon.com. One more thing on Brad Kelly before we get to Jeffrey Dahmer. Clip that, send it. I don't think so. Earth and Dark is very good, and everyone should read it, but it does fall apart a little in the third act, to be honest. I think that Brad Kelly is probably like one or two more novels away from really writing something that is an all-timer. And like he's definitely got the juice in him. And I think that we're going to look back and say that these are good but flawed works, and that his later stuff really overshadows it. So,
there are so many people that I think are like actually like assuming like launch position now. Like Anna's got another one that she's almost done with. It's incredible. Tom Will's got a new book coming out, which, I mean, I've only seen the cover and read a few of them, but it's definitely going to be his best. There's all kinds of great, like it's interesting because on one hand we're definitely the politics are getting bleak again, but we're actually like in terms of like writing, it's like we're actually starting to get there. It's very cool. One more thing though, did you not see my meme that I posted today?
I never see memes.
And I was so proud of this. Somebody retweeted something about. Somebody commented on something on Twitter, said the only option is to remake Twin Peaks but with black people. And then I went and got the Ice-T meme, and I said they all meet with this evil bitch. Kids down at the Roadhouse are calling her Judy.
My God. This one. There we go. It's Law and Order. Law and Disorder. That's the Black Twin Peaks. Let's see. Also, Sex Freakman said in response to In Our Sphere, he says, "In our sphere, everything under the firmament." Yes, perfect. The dome above.
Penultimo says he likes to be pull a Heinlein, but like any sci-fi that I write is inevitably going to be more in line with the only sci-fi writer who I see my own shadow in, and it is unfortunately the one you don't want to see your own shadow in. I just finished reading "Flow My Tears," the policeman said, and
you're not crazy enough to be Philip K. Dick.
he was legitimately fucking.
He was
nuts,
actually
man.
insane. Yes, no, he was actually clinically insane. Very talented, but actually clinically
Dude, that book fucked me up a little. I was like, whoa.
I actually think you're too much. I actually think you're too optimistic. I thought you were gonna say Harlan Ellison, and I was going to say that you're actually too optimistic to be Harlan Ellison. But
I don't know that I have like I don't have a real good sensibility for sci-fi actually, because like the things that sci-fi writers are concerned with usually don't bother me very much. But there's some stuff. It might be fun. Yeah. Yeah, I'll start fooling with it.
All right. Interesting.
I mean, the first thing I published last year was in Apocalypse Confidential. There were like some like sci-fi re-renderings of Psalm 42.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should do a sci-fi rendering of Psalm 133. So
which one is that? Is that my favorite one? Is that
behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirts of his garments. It is the dew of Hermon, and the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion, for there the Lord commanded the blessings, even life forevermore.
I'm getting so obsessed with white Zionism, which I shouldn't say on the air, but okay.
Let's reset the clock.
Meanwhile, back to Jeff.
Reset the clock. A Twitter guy gets into white Zionism. Anyway,
I'm just plummeting from the top of the bestseller chart right now.
No. Now you're making it to the New York Times, bud. You just adopted white Zionism.
I'll be on the Tucker Carlson show to talk about it soon.
Start saying you're this is probably a little passe now. So saying that you're a he, they probably wouldn't work anymore. No. Yeah. Anyway. All right. See you at the next Shabbat meeting. So Jeffrey Dahmer was born in 1960, the son of a research chemist with PPG Industries. Father Lionel Dahmer, PhD, who admitted that he, as a boy, had been fascinated with fire and the art of bomb making, whomst among us, correct? Recalled that what?
This all seems healthy so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you were a young boy and you didn't like seek out a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook and dissolve styrofoam in gasoline to make napalm, like what are you doing? Right?
Eternal war on the fire ants of South Louisiana,
Dude, so true. Ground wasps for me, but Midwesterner. Let's see. Recalled that at 13, he had wanted to hypnotize a girl so that he could control her entirely. That's a Solianath tweet that what happened in this last week as well. Lionel Dahmer also said that Jeffrey had been molested at the age of 8, purportedly by a neighborhood boy. By the age of 10, Jeffrey was experimenting with dead animals. Really, really hope that is not a euphemism. And learning to use acid to dispose of the bodies. Okay. Little much. In 1975, 3 neighborhood kids found a mutilated dog in the woods behind the Dahmer house. Its decapitated, gutted carcass hanging from a tree. A cross of sticks was nearby. They gave it a dignified burial or funeral. 3 years later, while on a senior class trip to Washington, D.C., Jeffrey Dahmer made a call from a payphone and then announced to his high school classmates that he had secured them an appointment to visit the office of the Vice President of the United States. Though his friends naturally were skeptical, Jeffrey did indeed lead them on a tour of Walter Mondale's office, followed by a visit to the office of prominent writer Art Buchwald. It has never been explained how the aspiring serial killer had established such impressive contacts in Washington, and it has never been revealed who it was that Dahmer called that day to arrange the impromptu private tours. Mondale's on the list. Put him on the list. We're gonna get a thumbtack, and we're gonna get some red yarn. We're gonna put Walter Mondale on there. A girl who dated Jeffrey briefly during their senior year recalled one date during which a seance was conducted at the Dahmer home. Someone in the group had suggested that it might be a good idea to try to contact Satan. Normally, you just try to contact a spirit, but going straight to the bottom is pretty. It shows gumption. The girl made a hasty exit from the house. Good girl. Just after Jeffrey's graduation, he was gay anyway. Just after Jeffrey's graduation in 1978, his parents filed for divorce, both of them accusing the other of extreme cruelty. Jeffrey later claimed that he killed for the first time that summer, but no evidence was ever produced to support that claim. The identity of the purported victim was determined by having Dahmer choose from a collection of photographs of boys who had been reported missing around that time. Jeff enrolled at Ohio State University, but attended for just 1 quarter before being taken to a military recruiter by his father. Wow, he doesn't even make it to midterms. That's wild. Yeah. He began his military career on January 12, 1979. Like Heidnik, Dahmer sought training as a military policeman, but was instead trained as a medic. He completed his training on the summer solstice, and he was then assigned to a West German military hospital. Dahmer was processed out of the service at Fort Jackson, South Carolina on March 26, 1981. Hold on 1 second. All right, there we go. Okay. So let's see. Oh, I lost my place. March 26, 1981. His release came early, allegedly due to chronic alcoholism.
6 days after. Oh, no, it's not. God damn it.
Yeah,
so bad.
No, you're so bad at that. Yeah. Let's see. His release came early due to chronic alcoholism, but it was an honorable discharge with full benefits. Alcoholism at the time being a bit of a badge of honor. So, Jeffrey next serviced in Miami, Florida, where he briefly stayed. Speaking of, I just want to point out, because you tried to do the April 20th thing. April 20th is a Monday this year. So we will be having a show on April 20th. And you know what that means.
I'm going to be so high.
We're going to play Erica. We're going to play Erica. That's right. Jeffrey next surfaced in Miami, Florida, where he briefly stayed before moving back home and in with his father and stepmother. Do you think that Fish ever did a cover of Erica?
Fish?
Yeah, I mean, or the Dead. You think they ever did a cover of Erica? Just so that we could really combine the holidays, for those who celebrate.
That would be great.
Make the AI Erica cover by the Dead, and we'll play that as a special intermission.
Dude, I'm doing that right now.
Dude, I thought you were gonna say weed at the end. Dude, weed. In October 1981, he was arrested for disorderly conduct, possession of an open container of alcohol, and resisting arrest. Again, whomst among us? He paid a $60 fine and was sent on his way. Sounds like it costs $60 to be drunk in public and resist arrest. Shortly after that, he moved in with his parental grandmother. In 1982, he was arrested for indecent exposure. It sounds like he's having a good time. He again paid a nominal fine. In January 1985, he began working at the Ambrosia Chocolate Company. At about that same time, he began regularly visiting Milwaukee's gay bars and bathhouses, experimenting on unsuspecting victims with surreptitious druggings.
How many gay bars and bathhouses were there? It was Milwaukee's gay nightlife like in the 80s? Don't answer that question.
How would, yeah. I'm not sure how I would know, but I imagine cold.
We'll venture a Google.
Yeah, venture a grok.
Milwaukee gay nightlife
1982, 1985. There we go. Yeah.
Walker's a thriving, resilient scene.
Okay, Grok. Don't be gay about it.
There's a website devoted to this. Oh my god.
I mean, probably because of Dahmer. Anyway.
I mean, there's just a lot of places.
I mean, Milwaukee was, this is pre-NAFTA. Milwaukee was a much bigger town pre-NAFTA. Just like most, Rust Belt cities. Anyway, gay bars and bathhouses. The Club Bath Milwaukee was a favored lab for his field experiments. The bathhouse owners were well aware of Jeffrey's activities, but little, if anything, was done to curtail them. Now, when you say surreptitious druggings, like, what are we talking about here? Like, is he like giving them MDA when he's saying it's blow? Like, what? Like, this is a gay bathhouse. How surreptitious? Your druggings don't really need to be that surreptitious, one would expect. You think they're probably just like, oh, drugs? Okay. Let's see. In March 1987, Dahmer was again arrested for indecent exposure after masturbating in front of two young boys. He paid $42 in court costs and was given a 1-year suspended sentence, from which he was released on March 1988. It costs $42 to jack off in front of two young boys in Milwaukee in 1987. And you don't even pay them, you pay the state. So at that time, he allegedly began dismembering and dissolving bodies. His first victim was purportedly killed in a hotel and then brought back to Grandma's house in a suitcase transported by taxi. The body of his second victim was allegedly allowed to ripen in her basement for a week. The odor, needless to say, would have been unbearable. Nevertheless, it was claimed that Grandma had no idea what Jeffrey was up to in the basement. Wow. Grandma can't do the stairs anymore. In September 1988, Dahmer got his own apartment, which soon became one of America's most infamous death houses. Which was a lease violation, which he probably did not have to pay any fine for, although he almost certainly did forfeit his security deposit when he was arrested.
Yeah, I don't know if that counts.
What do you mean? Forfeiting your security deposit because you dismembered gay men in your apartment and like made lampshades out of them and shit?
I'm trying to decide if that counts as a Wendy.
Oh, no, he didn't say that. I said that. Oh, my God. Johnny Walt. $40. This is why we have Tim Walls. So true. So true. It was only $42 to masturbate in front of young boys in the 80s in Wisconsin. That's why Tim Walls is still free, because he had $42. Let's see. That very same month, he was accused of molesting a young boy. The following May, he was convicted of second-degree sexual assault. Despite an appeal to the court by Lionel Dahmer, Jeffrey received a 3-year sentence. He served just 10 months at a minimum security facility on a work release program that allowed him to continue working at the chocolate factory. He reportedly, hey, you molested a young boy. You know what we're going to do? We're going to let you work at a candy store while you're serving your sentence for that. Also, I didn't mention Johnny Wall gave us a $2 super chat. Thank you. Let's see. He reportedly kept a mummified head and genitals in his work locker during that time. On Thanksgiving, Dahmer was given a rare gift, 12 hours of freedom. He returned late and visibly intoxicated with no repercussions. Minimum security, guys. Minimum security. Sex Freakman in chat. Second-degree sexual assault, is that measured like burns or what? It doesn't cause blistering, but it does cause reddening.
What does it mean? What does it mean? Is it
second-degree sexual assault? I think it means you don't stick it in.
Maybe.
Probably. Who knows? Ask Rock. What did second-degree sexual assault mean in Wisconsin in the 80s? All right. In early 1990, Dahmer was released on parole. He remained on parole throughout his killing spree, but no one ever visited his home to check up on him. Footnote here, Dahmer's situation was not a unique one. Ed Kemper was supposed to have regular contact with both a parole officer and a social worker throughout his killing spree, but he never contacted either of them, and no one was ever sent to check on him. Interesting. That would later become the basis of a lawsuit filed by the survivors of some of Dahmer's victims. The suit plausibly contended that a routine visit would have saved countless lives. Probably countful lives. Honestly, the thing is that, like, Jeffrey Dahmer, no matter how many people he killed, he has a lower body count than the average gay guy. So, he could have just had AIDS and killed more people, you know? Let's see. Before Jeffrey's parole records were made public, they were, in the words of chronicler Don Davis, well vacuumed and mostly blanked out. The Wisconsin Department of Corrections ordered Dahmer's parole officer, Donna Chester, not to talk to the press. No shit. In July 1990, Dahmer hit a 15-year-old boy over the head with a rubber mallet and then attempted to strangle him. That's like a fucking cartoon-ass murder. A rubber mallet. Following the attack, he then inexplicably called the kid a taxi and sent him on his way. The victim was taken to a medical center where he gave police an address and a description of his assailant. No one bothered to investigate the incident. At about that same time, Jeffrey acquired a 75-gallon drum of acid, which he purportedly brought home in a taxi. He never owned a car and muscled up to his apartment by himself. 2 men in a moving dolly were required to remove the drum. Wow.
Jeff, what are you doing? What are you doing with all this? What are you doing with all this muriatic acid, Jeff? Nothing. Right.
Also, a fucking taxi? Like a fucking taxi is like.
I mean, dude,
like,
no,
you're gonna have to pay. Your fucking barrel is gonna have to pay fare, you know. Like,
yeah. This counts as two.
This counts as two. You get, you know. In May 1991, a 14-year-old boy was seen fleeing Dahmer's apartment by 2 young women who called the police to report the incident. The boy was naked, bleeding, and drugged into a near stupor. The responding officers chose to believe Dahmer's tale of a lover's quarrel, even though the witnesses, who were still on the scene, angrily informed them that they had seen the terror-stricken boy actively resisting Dahmer's efforts to restrain him, and despite the fact that the victim was clearly a minor. The witnesses claimed that the officers told them to go away and refused to take their names. They opted not to run a routine background check on the possible suspect, which would have revealed that Dahmer was a convicted child molester who was still on parole for his previous molestation conviction. The victim of that previous molestation was the brother of the bleeding, terrified young boy in front of Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. Wow.
Wow. I'd like to point out that Randall Shirker appears totally taken in with the thesis of this text as a general rule, because he says, sounds to me like Dahmer had someone who high up who liked him. I assume
you don't mean God.
Dave McGowan's strongest soldier down here.
Yeah, that's right. The crazy thing is, you'd think that the brother of the kid who got molested would know to steer clear of Jeffrey Dahmer, right? You would just know, you would be like, you molested my brother. What are the odds that I get molested? Like, pretty high, actually. They're pretty high. Yeah. Okay, Randall Shirker says, I'm saying an elected official in Wisconsin had him as a down low brother. Yeah, no, obviously. Yeah. Definitely not unbelievable. Especially knowing the way that Wisconsin went. Am I right? Scott Walker? When's that guy getting married? Anyway. Let's see. Amazingly enough, the 3 officers on the scene claim that they actually accompanied the pair back to Dahmer's apartment and noticed nothing amiss there. That was in spite of the fact that there was a 3-day-old rotting corpse lying on the bed, with the attendant smell of death permeating the apartment. There was also an abundance of morbid artifacts and photos lying about the home. Nevertheless, the officers purportedly saw nothing wrong and left the scene with the victim still in Dahmer's custody. As soon as they left, Dahmer killed the boy and then raped and disemboweled the corpse. The mother of one of the two witnesses called the police after reading a newspaper account of a missing boy who closely resembled the naked young man, but her concerns were dismissed. She then contacted the local FBI office, but she was rebuffed there as well. The woman claimed that she was instructed not to talk to the press. Dahmer's last intended victim was Tracy Edwards, a 31-year-old father of 6. Edwards had recently jumped bail in Mississippi on charges of sexually battering a 13-year-old girl. He escaped from his would-be abductor and went to authorities with a description of the assailant and his rancid-smelling apartment. Edwards told police that he had seen Dahmer undergo a sudden radical transformation. His face was completely changed. I wouldn't have recognized him. It's as if the devil himself stood in front of me. The apartment, he said, was filled with photos of male torsos. Standard gay apartment. It was filled with considerably more than that. There were bloodstains on the bed. There was an extensive collection of photos depicting bodies in various stages of dismemberment. 4 intact heads were found, 1 in the refrigerator and 3 in a freezer. Another freezer was filled with wrapped, unmarked meat and a human heart. A file drawer was filled with bones. I wonder if they were sorted like by the name of the bones. Like he's got a really big, like he's got a really big F drawer for femurs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if he was just keeping like phalanges and tarsals, so he just had a giant P drawer and not a P drawer. Mom found the P drawer. A file cabinet for the P section that had a bunch of phalanges in it. They never get into this. They never get into how exactly were they storing things. Let's see. A barrel of acid was brimming with miscellaneous body parts. It's not very good acid. One kettle was filled with skulls, and another contained several hands and penises. A kettle. Like a... I'm not sure what kettle means in this context.
Yeah, it's a large metal container.
I mean, yeah, but I wouldn't call that like a kettle.
You mean like it's yeah? I mean, that's what I'm thinking.
Like I would think a cauldron or something like like a kettle. I imagine like a kettle for making boiling water for tea. You know what I mean? Yeah, cauldron. Sex freakman. A cauldron. A cauldron is what he means.
Like a cauldron.
Like a witch's cauldron. Like a big cast iron bucket.
I don't know. It's like a Dutch oven.
Like a Dutch oven. Yeah, like a Dutch oven, but rounded. And with like a big handle, you can like hang it over a fire. Anyway, the problem is that a kettle just obviously couldn't fit any skulls in it. And
Randall Shirker now says, even getting with a woman is no proof you are not in fact a man who prefers the company of other gentlemen. Oh man, how does it feel to be a genuine incel? There's gay dudes out here banging women.
The gay guys get more pussy. Anyway, yes, it was sex frequent. It was an imported British kettle, large enough to contain multiple skulls. So true. Anyway, the other one had severed hands and penises in them. 7 skulls in all were found. Gruesome photo albums were scattered around the house. Dahmer was initially charged. He's scrapbooking. Dahmer was initially charged with 4 counts of murder. That is a lower number than the number of skulls. One would think it would have to be at least the number of skulls, right? You think it would have to be at least 7. Yeah, interesting. And his bail was set at $1 million. Think of how many times he could have exposed himself to young boys for $1 million. Prosecutors soon added 8 additional murder counts and raised the bail amount to $5 million. Okay. 8 additional murder counts makes sense, although that is way more than the number of skulls. I guess they counted the bones. They're like, there's way too many bones here. There's way more bodies. Let's see. Another 3 counts were then added, although there were no body parts or photos to support the additional charges. They just wanted it to be, you know. Prosecutors claimed that one photo album had been destroyed. They also claimed that the bodies of the victims depicted in that particular album had been, conveniently enough, tossed out with the trash. Jeffrey's trial began in January 1992. His attorney, Gerald Boyle, who had previously set his sights on becoming the city's DA, had waived his client's rights to a preliminary trial. Boyle had also allowed his client to give detailed confessions to his crimes during lengthy interrogations. Dahmer entered a plea of guilty but insane. He was given a 937-year prison sentence. By the end of the year, his apartment building had been destroyed. The 3 police officers who had, unknowingly or otherwise, aided in and abetted the serial killer were cleared of any wrongdoing. There were, inevitably, questions that were left unanswered by the trial. 2 of the victims had been abducted from Chicago, and Dahmer did not own or have the use of a car. How were those victims transported? The remains of some victims were never found. Were their bodies really disposed of in the trash? Okay, well, here's the thing. They say that they were abducted in Chicago, but what are the details of the abduction? Were they just missing from Chicago? Like they went to Milwaukee to have a gay hookup? Because it's like an hour away, right? Like those cities are very close to each other. So someone who wanted to keep their shit secret, it's totally plausible that they would have done that. So,
maybe.
Well, it's not implausible, right? Oh no! What if you run into someone who you know at the gay bathhouse? Yeah.
Oh, no.
Then your cover is blown for both of you. So what's the point? Yeah, right. Let's see. The remains of some victims were never found. Were their bodies really disposed of in the trash? And if so, why did Dahmer choose to dispose of only a select few bodies? He's still using the other ones. He was keeping the meat. Also, like if the muriatic acid, like it had to be doing something, right? Like it had to be doing something.
Actually, here's a fun story.
Oh, great! I love fun stories.
If you ever, you might know this one, but like if you're gonna dissolve a body in acid,
what? Okay, go for it.
There are certain types of acid. Let's like I say, say you kill yourself a raccoon and you want the skeleton or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yep.
So
are you gonna say carrion beetles?
You can use muriatic acid for that. Okay.
Sure. Because you got to get the bones out fast enough.
Well, no, it won't dissolve. It won't dissolve the bones. Muriatic acid won't dissolve bones. So muriatic acid is hydrochloric acid. It's one of what we call the strong acids. Strong acids, if I remember them correctly, are hydrochloric acid, hydroiodic acid, sulfuric acid, phosphoric acid, and perchloric acid. And what a strong acid versus what a strong acid is versus a weak acid is that a strong acid will, upon dissolution in water, dissociate entirely into its constituent ions. So hydrochloric acid will dissociate 100% into hydronium ions, which are positively charged water molecules, which is what causes the burn because that's a charge on the water molecule, and then negatively charged chlorine ion. Chloride is really what it's called. But you can't actually dissolve bodies in any of these because they have a particularly difficult time
with calcium.
Yeah. And so if you are in fact going to
right, of course, you need to use a base. That's right.
No, it's not even a base. There is an acid that'll do it. It's hydrofluoric acid, which would be a strong acid, except it's so strongly electronegative that it doesn't dissociate completely. It dissociates to an incredibly high degree, like most of my ex-girlfriends, but not completely.
Nice.
And the thing about hydrofluoric acid, though, is that hydrofluoric acid will dissolve calcium, which means if you get it on your skin in nasty concentrations, it's
not great calcium. For you. Yeah,
it'll dissolve your own bones into your blood system and stop your heart. And hydrofluoric acid also will eat through almost everything, including metal. So it's probably not what Jeffrey was lugging up to his apartment. Okay.
Could have been a plastic barrel.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Milwaukee in the 1980s. Come on. Look how rusted that place is. They still don't use plastic.
I think, but you could also just use lye. You know, you could just use like powdered lye and then like hydrate it again and then dissolve fucking anything organic in that. So
does that work?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, this is one Cap and I'm the acid, he's the base.
That's right. People do say that I am based, but that's why the whole body's covered in lye in Bundy's basement. Like the problem was that they were dry. If you had just like hosed them down now and then, they would have actually dissolved.
Sex Freakman says, "Thank goodness I was wondering how to work a dissociation joke in there. We're way ahead of you." That Sex Freakman, that is why I'm the co-host and you're just
the Freakman.
I don't know what to call
God's strongest.
Yeah.
God's strongest chatter.
In my promo for the show today, I said, like, join us as I try to distract Cap from the subject at hand. And like, I've gotten so desperate to do so, I'm explaining to the audience how to get rid of a body.
I mean, that is kind of on topic, though.
It is. Yeah, it's on
because we're talking about how Dahmer had failed. The skulls would be really fucking difficult.
Yeah, Vulpus persona, muriatic acid is hydrochloric acid. That's the trade name for it. And hydrochloric, I mean, just because something, what's interesting is that because something is a strong acid does not necessarily mean.
Yeah, it just dissolves certain things and not others. Yeah.
Well, it's all strong and weak correspond to is the dissociation constant. So how many moles of hydronium ions do you get per mole of the original compound compound dissolved? But molar concentration is going to be the thing that gives you a much better indication of how fast you got to run. And whenever you buy that really concentrated pool acid, muriatic acid, it's usually going to be concentrated to such a point that I think concentrating muriatic acid past 35% starts to get really difficult. And it acquires this, like, as long as it's sealed, it acquires this very syrupy, like it looks like corn syrup. But if you like uncork, if you unscrew the container lid or whatever, it's actually so dehydrated at that point that it will begin absorbing water from the atmosphere. And one of the things about because there's thermodynamic aspects to these reactions as well, and the dissociation. The dissociation of these acids is in fact an exothermic reaction, which means heat is released. So anytime this is why you get this rule that you're always supposed to add acid to water rather than water to acid, because you really want that. You really want the water there to absorb
that heat.
All of that heat. Otherwise, but yeah, if you just crack open a jug of that highly concentrated pool acid and just
crack open a can of highly concentrated muriatic acid and remember to just huck that fucker right in the pool, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can do it that way. You don't want to do it the other way.
Yeah, don't huck the pool into the can because it's too small.
I have an interesting chemistry background, which is like one of the things that this is one of the dangerous parts of producing certain compounds at home. Anything that requires what's called a methylation. So like things that are going to get that prefix methyl. One of the things that you can really fuck up is this step where you have to take this whatever molecule that you're attempting to methylate, because methyl groups are CH. This is going to be a CH3 or CH. I think it's CH3 groups. they are not very chemically reactive. Just shoving a blunt carbon knob on the end of an already existing molecule is not easy. And one of the things you have to do, one of the ways you can do this, is by doing exactly the opposite of what I just told you to do. And you whip up an equal molar solution of hydrochloric and nitric acid, which will sequentially nitrate and then replace this, and if essentially you end with a methyl group. But the way you have to do this is you have to add the reagent. You have to add the thing that you're methylating to this solution of very strong acids, 1 drop at a time. And this has to be done in an ice bath, because every couple of drops of this liquid will spike the temperature of the solution drastically, and it will start a runaway chain reaction. So if you're ever methylating something at home, remember to use an ice bath.
They're here. All right. Thanks for the chemistry interlude. You can tell that I am not a stem cell. I am a humanities Chad. So, anyhow, I completely lost my place. All right, here we go. Some aspects of Jeffrey's confessions were completely unsupported by the evidence. To what extent did Dahmer's interrogators shape those confessions? One victim's grandmother reported receiving several phone calls during which she had heard groaning, choking, and faint cries of "help me, help me, help me." Those calls came a few weeks after the disappearance of her grandson. Was he kept alive for an extended period of time? Dahmer, like all collectors, was obsessed with gaining control over his victims. He preferred means of... See, the weird thing is that McGowan is repeating the profiler lines, right? Even while expressing skepticism of profiling categories and methods, right? His preferred means of doing so and of disposing of the bodies that accumulated from his failed experiments was through the use of chemicals, an interest that was acquired perhaps from his research chemist father. Jeff was reportedly working on perfecting a home lobotomy procedure that involved drilling a hole in the victim's forehead and then injecting various combinations of chemicals. Dahmer has been described as a dabbler in Satanism, but it's like he was a real Luciferian dilettante over here. He wasn't serious about it. His apartment, he had a detailed plan for constructing a satanic altar. The plan incorporated the human skulls and other artifacts that he had been collecting. He could have had enough for a throne. The plan incorporated the human skulls, etc. He told authorities that he believed that by constructing the altar and by consuming the flesh of his victims, he would be infused with special powers and energies that would help him to succeed socially and financially. Unfortunately, he was eating faggots, and so it just made him gayer. Oddly enough, in March 1999, the brother of one of Dahmer's victims was found stabbed to death. Police described the young man's death as a ritual sacrifice. Dahmer served just 2 years of his prison sentence before he was inexplicably paired with 2 homicidal inmates on an unsupervised work detail. Only one of the 3 made it through the day. It was not, needless to say, Jeffrey Dahmer. After his death, Lionel Dahmer waged a macabre battle with Jeff's mother over preserving his brain for study. Lionel Dahmer, you absolute maniac. I wonder who was on which side, right? Like you think Lionel? I think Lionel wanted to preserve the brain, and his mom didn't.
This is. I try to get over my fear of the Midwest, and then you sit me through this. I'm being DDD'd.
What do you mean? This is just normal. This is just normal Midwest stuff. Look, the coastals fly over because they're afraid of what will happen to them if they land. Look, we just went through a bunch of shit that happened. Like there were 8 of these guys who did shit only in LA.
true. It's true.
The
Somehow that freaks me out less.
Yeah, you do kind of expect it from LA, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, also, like, fair to point out that, Louis Jolyon West was the head of psychology at UCLA. Like, so the lunatic was really running the asylum over there. Yeah. And he is, probably responsible for the most deaths out of any of the people that we've covered. So, I mean, not counting any of the, like Joint Chiefs of Staff and shit that were in the 70s and 60s that we also covered.
Yeah.
As a child, Herb Baumeister reportedly never showed any emotion, even when his father. Oh, by the way, just in case you don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer was killed by a broom. They took a broom handle and they put it in his butthole, and then they made it go all the way up into his esophagus. So, obviously that is not a straight line as the organs go. So he had his diaphragm and his colon and everything ruptured. So he basically just got impaled on a broom on something very blunt. So that those other inmates really showed him what for.
He looks kind of like Jude Law. How has Jude Law never played him?
Who did play Dahmer in the Netflix adaptation? Michael B. Jordan.
Didn't that guy just win an Oscar last night or something?
He did. He did. Chad is competing for zingers of Jeffrey Dahmer's death. Randall Shirker says, AKA he went out the way he wanted, manhandled by other dudes. And Sex Freakman said, that's the straightest he ever was.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I like that one. Sex Freakman, this was just a gentleman's bet. Sex Freakman wins the gentleman here. Sorry, Randall. You're a strong soldier, but he won the day. So now we're doing Herb Baumeister. So we're just on to the next one after a mere 5 asterisks. As a child, Herb Baumeister reportedly never showed any emotion, even when his father became physical, which apparently happened quite frequently. I really hope he was getting beaten, because the other alternative for getting physical is much worse. Although I'm pretty sure Herb is not going to be not going to come through this without blood on his hands or his dick, probably. Herb Baumeister Sr. had served in World War II, after which he graduated from Indiana University's School of Medicine and began work as an anesthesiologist. His son and namesake initially set out to follow in his father's academic footsteps by enrolling in college as an anatomy major. Unlike his father, however, Herb Jr. dropped out of school. He then married Juliana Sater, the daughter of a superintendent of the Naval Air Warfare Center. Herb and Juliana were both members of the Young Republicans, as was Ted Bundy. Yeah, but was he at Indiana University's? Was he at Indiana University, or was he just like a member of a different chapter of the Young Republicans? Not long after marriage, Herb's father had his newlywed son committed to LaRue D. Carter Memorial Hospital, a state-run mental asylum. The Carter facility catered to patients with serious mental impairments, yet there is no indication that Herb was, at the time, seriously impaired. And if he had been, his father was an extremely wealthy man who could have easily afforded to get his son private care. Herb Sr.'s choice of facilities, therefore, was a rather odd one. Long before the maybe he was just a fucking cheap ass. Herb Sr.'s choice of facilities was an odd one. Long before the confinement at Carter, Herb Sr. had reportedly secreted his young son off to be administered mental examinations. It sounds like Herb is a little fagulous. Herb was released from the Carter facility after 2 months. His diagnosis noted that he exhibited 2 or more distinct personalities. Following his confinement, Baumeister took a job at the Indianapolis Star. A position that he took at the newspaper was known to be regularly filled by the sons and daughters of the wealthy and powerful. Just the Nepo baby chair at the newspaper.
I mean, it's like well known. It's kind of like how Columbia University is. If you can't get into Harvard, you go to Columbia. If you can't get a job at the Chicago Tribune, you used to go work at the Indianapolis Star.
Interesting. Herb's next job, driving a hearse, provided him with his requisite blooding. Herb Sr. then once again pulled some strings to land Herb Jr. a position, with the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, where one of his duties was serving as the Bureau's liaison to the Indiana State Police. Herb left the Bureau in 1985 and thereafter remained unemployed while wife Juliana occupied her time doing volunteer work. In 1986, warrants were issued for Herb's arrest on charges of theft and conspiracy to commit theft. True to form, Baumeister opted to waive his right to a jury trial and place his fate in the hands of a judge. The bench trial, such as it was over in just one day. Herb was found not guilty on all counts. By that time, the Baumeisters had been living quite well for an extended period of time, even though neither of them were gainfully employed. Herb then decided that the time was right to start up his own business. With a $35,000 loan from his mother, he opened a thrift store. Wow. In 1988, in thrift stores, a business venture that is normally supported by being a nonprofit. Just pointing that out. In 1988, in conjunction with the Children's Bureau of Indianapolis, he founded Thrift Management Incorporated. Herb's close association with the Children's Bureau, which primarily catered to orphans, the type of victim who aren't likely to be missed, hints at the possibility that this thrift store business was a cover for more profitable and nefarious business pursuits. Selling orphans. What are you saying that? Are you saying that this machine is operated by the soul of it's powered by the soul of an abandoned child? Yes. It's just orphans. By 1990, Herb's company was growing rapidly, and a second Save-A-Lot outlet opened its doors for business. To staff his stores, Herb assembled a workforce of attractive young male employees, just as John Gacy had done. By all outward appearances, things were going quite well for the Baumeisters. In November 1991, Herb, Juliana, and their 3 kids moved into a new home. 3 children, a perfect cover for being gay. Let's see. Moved into a new house, a 4-bedroom, 5-bathroom estate with an indoor pool, situated on 18.5 acres. Known as Fox Hollow Farm, the property also featured a barn and horse stables. The family maintained a second home as well and also had access to a condominium on Lake Wabasee, owned by Herb's mother. This must be fucking nice. Goddamn boomers, let me tell you. Yeah. Let's see. Geo says the Dahmer trial bit was an iconic cannibalism, posing people dead that he took pictures, masturbating all over the place. This is Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, it was a real clown show. The Dahmer stuff was like he's like the 90s serial killer trial. Like, I think for most millennials, Dahmer is the first serial killer most of us are like can remember learning about.
I'm trying to think what it was. I think it was Derek Todd Lee because that was like all happening. Like,
really?
Yeah. I'm not really serial killer sensitive.
You're not. I'm not really. Okay. I'm not really serial killer. Okay. Anyway. 3 years after moving to Fox Hollow Farm, 13-year-old Eric Baumeister discovered a skeleton in the backyard. He dutifully reported this find to his mother, but Julie told no one, including the police, of her son's discovery. By that time, young gay men and male prostitutes in the Indianapolis area, footnote here on the Indianapolis area. Indianapolis, interestingly enough, is where the Reverend Jim Jones launched his first incarnation of his people's temple and gathered his first recruits. That homo had been disappearing for a very long time. From about 1980 on, their bodies began surfacing in Indiana and western Ohio. Many were strangled and deposited along Ohio's Interstate 70. One victim, it is the country's Interstate 70. Only part of it goes through Ohio. One victim had his arms, legs, and head severed, and his torso completely drained of blood. The severed parts were never recovered. 4 bodies were found clustered together on October 14th, 1983, in what was described as a private graveyard. A nearby barn was found to contain both a pentagram and an inverted cross.
Fun fact about Indiana that was
fun fact. Indiana fun facts. Go for it.
That I was apprised of is that only part of the state recognizes daylight savings.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And it also sits within 2 separate time zones. So there actually is the possibility of a complete 4-hour time differential within the state of Illinois.
You mean Indiana?
Yeah. Whichever.
Indiana is the most cursed state in the union. Like, I'm just
no. Oh no. You, sir, need to be introduced to Alabama.
I've never been to Alabama.
No, we'll have to fix that one of these days.
Why is it the most cursed?
It just is.
Give me a reason. Got to give me a reason. Yeah. 4-hour time difference ain't doing it.
No state has tried to kill best-selling poet C. Sandbatch more frequently than Alabama.
I mean, that just sounds like a consistent part of you being cursed.
You're right. You know what would make me feel a lot better? If you all would sneed those super chats.
Perfect opportunity to transition into a shill. Yes, remember, sneed those super chats. That's what lets us keep the light on. That's what lets me pay for StreamYards. And then, occasionally give Sandbatch his bakshish. If you want to directly support Sandbatch's work, however, you should go buy his poetry collection. It's linked in the description on YouTube.
Oh, did you do that? It's awfully nice.
Yep. Holy Horses Band says, keep Alabama out your motherfucking mouth.
I went after Texas. Yeah. I went after Texas last week. This week it's Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Gio, the Midwest is God's country. You're in some sort of godforsaken pseudo-Midwestern
you fucking
frozen wasteland pretending to be a country. Yeah, that's right. We would invite you over the border for visits, though, if you'd ever join us.
Yeah, casseroles and hockey.
Dude, we got casseroles. We beat you guys in hockey. You had one thing. We took it. Come on.
So true. I drink your milkshake.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Oh my God. Randall Shirker. Great value Walmart brand Midwest is it's Canada. Let's see. In the mid-1980s, a man from Terre Haute, Indiana, named Larry Eyler confessed to kidnapping, torturing, and murdering as many as 23 of the victims. The second victim that he took credit for killing disappeared on the eve of Halloween, 1982. The sixth went missing on the spring equinox of 1983. Eyler claimed that for 6 of the torture murders, he worked with accomplices. Among the accomplices he fingered was Robert David Little, a professor at Indiana State University and a former head of the Terre Haute chapter of the ACLU. That's always the ones you most suspect. Little and Eyler had lived together since 1975. Huh. Okay. No shit, he fingered him. In May 1983, a task force was formed. The following month, dozens of law enforcement officials gathered for a summit to review the case. The task force made little progress, however, until an anonymous tipster turned in Eyler. From that point on, Eyler was purportedly under constant surveillance, but the disappearances and killings continued. Eyler had previously been arrested in August 1978 after attacking and stabbing a hitchhiker who he then left for dead. When taken into custody, Eyler was in possession of a sword, 3 knives, and a canister of tear gas. Sick loadout.
Sounds like Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir.
Very true. Very true.
It's a thin line between CEO of world-wrecking national security contractor and serial killer.
While you were being heterosexual, I studied the blade. Oh my God. Yeah, a sword. Wow. Did he use the sword? Or it seems like he used a knife.
Eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is drinking out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. Go ahead.
He was charged with attempted murder, and his bond was initially set at $50,000. After one day, his bail was lowered to $10,000, allowing his friends to free him. Eyler's attorney paid off the victim with a check for $2,500, and all charges were dropped. Whoa! Inflation is out of control. In 1978, it only cost $2,500 to stab a guy and leave him for dead. On November, if I had to do that now, it costs way more.
Inflation. So Trump needs to get the copy. Trump needs to get the CPI on violent crime back down.
No kidding. On November 13th, the presiding judge dismissed the case and ordered Eyler to pay just $43 in court costs. Wow. So it costs $2,543 in 1978. 3 years later, in 1981, Eyler was again arrested for drugging a 14-year-old boy and then dumping his unconscious body. It is unclear how that case was disposed of. It was probably dumped unconscious. When Eyler was arrested on suspicion of involvement in the I-70 murders, officers reportedly found a bloodstained knife in his truck. The boots that he was wearing, which were also bloodstained, matched plaster casts of boot prints taken from one of the crime scenes. The tires on his truck also matched plaster casts of truck tracks present at one of the murder scenes. As legal counsel, Eyler retained David Shippers, who later achieved notoriety as the Democratic attorney who presented the Republican-controlled House Judiciary Committee legally specious case for an impeachment of then-President Clinton, and who later still achieved yet more notoriety by raising his voice to question limited aspects of the official September 11th story. Oh, no. So I'm not even... hold on. So...
Yeah.
So he represents. So he was the he is a Democrat, and he presented the Republican-controlled House Judiciary Committee in the impeachment of Clinton. So they had a Democrat lawyer do that job. Weird. I thought it was Ken Starr. Oh no, he was the special counsel. So that I guess they hired Ken Starr after that. And who later achieved more notoriety, questioned limited aspects of the official September 11th story. So whose side is this guy on? Very interesting. In the Eyler case, Shippers promptly filed a motion to suppress all evidence seized in the case. His motion was granted, and the state's case against his client essentially evaporated. Eyler was freed, and he immediately packed up and moved to John Gacy's Chicago. John Wayne Gacy owns all of Chicago at this point, where he was later seen dumping trash bags filled with body parts into the trash bin of an apartment building. He was described as having a glassy look in his eyes as he went about his work. In addition to his fingerprints on the trash bags, investigators who searched his apartment found bloodstains, a hacksaw, more trash bags, and a T-shirt belonging to the dismembered victim. Shippers opted not to represent Eyler again, but he did serve as an advisor on the defense team. Eyler was convicted and, on October 3rd, 1986, sentenced to death. 4 years later, he fingered Professor Robert David Little as the mastermind behind the killings. He also claimed that the professor had photographed the sadistic murders in progress. Eyler was administered a polygraph examination, which he reportedly passed. Search warrants were served at the home that Little had shared with Eyler, as well as Little's university office. A number of videotapes and photographs were seized. Seized phone records revealed that Eyler had established a pattern of making late-night telephone calls to the house from various locations, though it is unclear if those locations corresponded to the location of the disappearances. Nice of him to check in, though. Little was indicted, brought to trial, and then acquitted on April 17th, 1991. Eyler, though, continued to supply information to investigators who were attempting to build a case against Little and other accomplices. Those efforts came to an abrupt end in March 1994 when Eyler died, reportedly of full-blown fucking AIDS. Many of his victims disappeared from the very same 2 square mile section of Indianapolis, peppered with gay bars that served as Herb's hunting grounds. Like Eyler, who was supplied by a doctor with Placidil to drug his victims, Herb had ready access to drugs, thanks to his father's prescription pads. Herb had also been to Ohio dozens of times in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Police first approached Herb and Julie to question them about the disappearances in November 1995. Herb immediately retained an attorney, James Voiles, the lawyer who a few years before had won an acquittal for Robert David Little. You would, right? A guy practicing in Indiana who gets people acquitted for a grisly string of murdered homosexuals. That's who you fucking hire, right?
That's not a great look, but apparently it seems to work.
Yeah, and you just hire the guy with the track record. I'm just saying, it's not that weird that you would hire the same guy.
Right. I mean, it's clear he's a specialist here, but I mean, it's like, to immediately retained an attorney I think Dave's being really unfair here. I've retained an attorney over traffic violations before.
Yeah, right. You just retain an attorney. That's what you do. You retain an attorney.
There's a 0% chance I'm talking to cops for any reason without an attorney. What
do you mean cops are your buddies? If you're honest with a cop, he'll just let you go.
I got pulled over for a speeding ticket one time that turned into several. I think I've told this story that turned into several drug dogs showing up because they were like, "Mind if I search your car?" And I was like, "Fuck no."
Yeah, right. Why would you want to search my car? Just to see if you got anything.
They asked me, they were like, why won't you let me search your car? And I'm like, general principles, man.
General principles, man.
Am I being detained?
Am I being detained, officer? Dude. Yeah. Let's see here. Do you ever watch videos of people getting arrested just to see where they fuck up?
Not in a long time. Yeah, I mean,
do you ever watch interrogation videos?
Yeah,
I do too. Yeah.
The guy that did we talked about that when we did Ed Gein, didn't we?
What?
The guy that took his initial deposition, lost his shit and smashed Gein's face into the side of into something, and as a result, that entire confession got thrown out, and that's why. And the dude ended up dying before Gein, largely because of guilt over not doing his job right. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, It is a shame that it's a shame. Seems like a reasonable reaction to hearing Gein's crimes, though.
Especially if you're like from like Wisconsin.
Yeah, you're just like a regular guy. Just like a regular guy who like can't imagine doing that to a person.
Likes drinking beer. Big old woman.
Son of Haster sends 5 America Land Fun Bucks. Fiat currency. What would you do seeing me sneed a super chat? Your unceasing greed. Enjoying the book, Sandy. You're the second poet I ever read.
I was like,
Lovecraft.
When you said what would you do seeing, I had a flashback. I was really happy to see that, like literal flashback to writing those. That was
getting quoted in the super chat. That's a good one. Plus this $5 means that he's already spent the however much your book costs. Right? So it's just confirmation.
It's a rising tide floats all boats at Tookie's Mag.
That really floats my boat. That's right.
Of course I recognize them. I wrote them.
Those ones really struck me. I'm glad you recognize. Well, no, I mean, like the thing is, if you hadn't Sandbatch, it would have been like, oh, Sandbatch generated all of these in ChatGPT. Hey, wait! Actually, you literally just provided proof of work. There we go. That's amazing.
Yeah. Now, I'm trying to think. There are things that I've written. There are like things you can pretty reliably quote some bullshit from articles that I've written at me, and I won't recognize it because I do so many of them. But I mean, I sat with those for. I wrote a little over 300 poems last year, and like out of that, about half of them made the cut for the first book, and then the ones that didn't make the cut. The book that's coming up has 153 in it. So, but I spent a lot of time with these, so I'm glad everybody's enjoying them. Are you eating chips?
No, I'm eating sunflower seeds. Hey, when you eat peanuts, do you ever just like eat the whole shell?
Yes, I do. I do eat the shell with
I
peanuts.
Do too. My wife tells me I'm a fucking maniac.
No, yeah, everybody has that reaction, but first of all, peanut shells are actually good for you. Fuckers.
I mean, I don't necessarily eat like every single one of them because it like gets that's a bit too much. But like every like third peanut, I'll just eat the whole shell.
Yeah, I do. I also do that. It's way easier with boiled peanuts because the shell kind of decomposes.
Oh well, obviously, yeah. Let's see here.
Uncle Ted says he eats his Snicker bars baby side down, which is.
Vulpus Persona asked, "Do you eat the shrimp shells too?" Not if they're boiled shrimp because the shells aren't really like chewable. But if it's if it's a shell on fried shrimp, then you can eat the shell. There's no reason not to eat the shell.
You can eat shrimp shells. This is like one of these things where like I get to see people. First of all, I have a thyroid condition and I can't really eat seafood, but I can't eat shellfish. But
too much iodine, huh?
Yeah, too much iodine. But over the years, I've gotten to see Yankees come in town and do the wildest shit with boiled seafood. And the woman,
like what?
The woman that most frequently dumped me, she was one that did that. She would eat the shrimp shells. She would eat shrimp shells on these big, huge boiled shrimp too. And I would I was like watching her, and I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" But
again, like if it's like the Chinese style head-on shrimp, it's called salt pepper shrimp, right?
Yeah,
like those things, they're like literally they're fried so that because the frying breaks down the shell, so you're like supposed to eat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it's Chinese, though.
I've never fried them with with shells on.
Yeah, it works fine.
We do leave the heads on sometimes, though. Banana skins, never done anything with banana skins, I don't think. But I'm sure there's
so if you let the banana, you let the banana go brown, you freeze them, right? Like you're making banana bread or something. You don't have to take the skin off. You can just blend it, and like it's fine. The skin is like not noticeable at all. So you can. But you can't if you're like got a yellow banana and you're gonna peel it and eat it. There's no fucking way you can eat that skin.
I was trying to think if there's anything you can do with them, but I like bananas that are not the Cavendish bananas. I like the various,
the burro banana,
and
the little guys,
Saint Michel bananas, which we actually have in New Orleans. That's the one that was the global banana before Cavendish.
Mm-hmm.
Plantains.
I mean, plantains are pretty good, but I mean, they're just like I'd have a sweet potato before I had a plantain. Basically, I mean, basically the same thing.
Usually do both of them together.
Yeah, fair. I like it. You like taro? You a fan of that?
Taro cards?
Taro.
Oh yeah, actually.
Taro. Taro.
Are you a fan of taro? Cap asked me an hour and 36 minutes.
Completely like, yeah. Complete non sequitur. No, taro. Yeah, it's like a purple root vegetable that was basically it was basically what was used as the potato before in pre-Columbian times.
Oh, dude, are you? So
the taro was almost completely replaced by potatoes.
And you know what else are really cool that you have to kind of go out of your way to find? They're like New England ground nuts.
I don't know what that is.
Really, it's an indigenous tuber.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of like Mesoamerican tubers that are like getting kind of popular because they reproduce incredibly quickly in American zones but don't perennialize, and they all have very odd mushroomy flavors, like kind of meaty. They're interesting, but unfortunately they're like really expensive, and because you can't perennialize them and they don't have shelf lives because they're not like commercially they're not like cultivars that are at standards of modern foods. They don't last, so you got to buy them every fucking year, so they're annualized. I do speaking of perennial foods that are amazing though, I planted some cardoon this year. You ever had cardoon?
No.
So this is a Dago thing, okay? Yeah, cardoon is a kind of artichoke, except it's not grown for the bud, right? Which is the artichoke. It's grown for the stems and the stalk. Mm-hmm. And so it's got these it's like a 7-foot tall plant. It's a thistle, right? Just like all artichokes. So it's this massive, it's this thistle with gigantism, and you eat the stalks like extra meaty celery. It's very tasty, and the roots are now they are perennialized, so you really shouldn't eat the roots unless you're trying to just cull it. But the roots are also every part of the plant is edible basically. So anyway, I got those started this year. Very excited because it's hard to find it. It's a Easter food in Italian or in Sicily. It's an Easter food. So anyway, getting back to murderers. Let's see. Hey, you know what? We're better people than the ones in this book because none of our recipes include human, except for that anecdote I told on the other show, on the other episode. Normal things don't require a kettle full of skulls. So, let's see. In May 1996, the Children's Bureau terminated its contracts with Herb and began publicly distancing itself from his operation, purportedly because the Save-A-Lot stores were in financial trouble. On June 20th, Herb informed his wife that he was taking the kids for physical examinations and then enrolled them in a summer program at the Culver Military Academy, where aspiring serial killer Doug Clark once resided. Julie had other plans, however, and on June 23rd, she consented to a police search of the property. When the search began the next day, Herb was away at the lake house with his son Eric. Investigators almost immediately discovered human bones and bone fragments on the property. They were not hard to find, since they were scattered about in plain sight, and there were literally thousands of them. Even though indications were that this was a multiple homicide case, it was assigned to Detective Sergeant Kenneth Wiseman, who had never handled a homicide case. Police promptly, and then rather ridiculously, claimed that they were days, if not weeks, away from being ready to question Herb Baumeister. They send Sergeant Wiseman over with some tubes of super glue to put all these bone fragments back together and say, all right, Ken, you're gonna have to put all these skeletons back together. Have fun, bud. We'll see you in a couple weeks. The majority of the bones. What?
Yeah, I'll leave it alone for a minute.
Let's see. The majority of the bones found at Fox Hollow Farm had been burned, crushed, and scattered, making identification nearly impossible. It was not possible to even estimate the number of victims, though it was determined that there were no less than 11. More than 6,000 bones and bone fragments were recovered. Okay. Bone fragments. There we go. Okay. All right. Pretty sure the human body has like 200, something like that. Strangely, though, no skulls were ever found. Although the site where the bodies had been burned, readily identifiable by the scorched ground, was in clear view of the home's kitchen window, Julie Baumeister swore that she knew nothing about the murders. Neighbors, however, questioned how the avid gardener, who spent a good deal of time in her yard, could have been unaware of thousands of bones, many of them visible to the naked eye. Also, how much time do you think it took him to burn all these bodies? I mean, how long do you?
I'm not our guy in body burning math. I know some people who spent a lot of time on this problem now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm just saying, also, imagine, people add bone meal to gardens, right? Especially if you're growing like brassicas or something like that, because they're heavy feeders. She probably had amazing cabbages, right? Yeah. If she's just mulching with human bone shards, that stuff had to be incredible. Her cabbages, Brussels sprouts, probably, I'm just saying, like kohlrabi, forget about it.
Mulching with human bone shards is the name of a Mountain Goats album that has never been released.
So true. Yeah, that's right. Let's see. Julie Baumeister told police investigators her husband was an avid videographer who maintained a private collection of hundreds of tapes. When she led them to the storage closet where the tapes were normally kept, however, all of them had suddenly gone missing. Investigators noted that a vent in the wall appeared to have been used to hide a video camera for surreptitious filming. A witness who had been taken to Fox Hollow Farm by Herb and whose tips had led the initial questioning of the Baumeisters reported seeing a closet filled with professional video equipment, including cameras, lenses, tripods, lighting equipment, and no such equipment was found during the search. Police seized only 10 items from the house. 5 of those items were videotapes. And notably, 6,000 of them were not bones and bone fragments. 2 days after the search of the property began, Julie Baumeister obtained an emergency order for temporary custody of her son, Eric. Officers were dispatched to the lake house where Herb was staying, and the child was brought back. Despite the fact that authorities had already spent 2 full days excavating Baumeister's 18-acre graveyard, he was not questioned about the discoveries of his property. As soon as the officers left with Eric, Herb promptly disappeared, which did not seem to concern police investigators. Over the next few days, searchers discovered a drainage ditch on the property that contained an abundance of large bones, but still no skulls. Wiseman still insisted that there was not enough evidence to issue a warrant for Baumeister's arrest. Are you fucking kidding me? On July 2nd...
Cops in this country used to be wildly lazy.
It's unbelievably. Oh my god. Sex Frequent says she mulch on my bone till I shard. So good. Geo says, does McGowan talk about Epstein blood, or is that before this book was written? Yeah. The whole Epstein thing happened after this. So, let's see. Uncle Ted says, after seeing all of the mask off with Epstein, do you doubt this book more or less at what the state will go to? Oh no, obviously, I think that
I don't believe anything. I don't believe anything about the Epstein shit.
None of it. No. Zero.
The information climate is so poisoned. I don't even believe what you're saying.
You don't believe anything in this book?
No.
You don't believe that Cardoon is an Italian vegetable?
I'm not certain this conversation's really happening.
That's you're fully Sandbatch has descended into solipsism. Why still when money isn't real and neither are any of my potential customers?
It's not quite that. It's not quite that bad, but like, let me explain. Let
you calm down. Are you having a stroke? What's going on?
No. Yeah,
Go for it.
Where is it?
Wow.
It's gone.
Wow, it's gone.
Oh no, there it is. There we go.
All right, go for it.
Schizoanalysis works differently. It avoids ideas and sticks to diagrams, networking software for accessing bodies without organs. Machining singularities. Tractor fields emerge through combination parts rather than into. So yeah, if you can't.
Are you reading Meltdown?
I'm always reading Meltdown.
You're always reading Meltdown. Motherfucker. Are you happy that I immediately clocked that? Let's see. Son of Aster says, I'm a level 6 non-believer. I don't even believe in anything that casts a shadow. Actually immune to the allegory of the cave. So, let's see.
Actually, I think Procrustes is kind of on with what I'm actually about here.
Sex Freakman says, I don't believe in anything. That man wouldn't rape a fly. Obviously, way too big. Way too big. Procrustes says, I'm mad at the people playing politics and focusing 100% on mug global pedo elite. Yet it's a horrible issue, but totally obscures his primary status as a fixer go between an arms dealer, etc. Yeah, no, 100%. Very true. Randall Shirker says he snooted Jolly on West's ashes. The trip will never end. That's and Geo says all the schizo over the years led to just Fox News boomer neoconservatism. Sad. That's right. Well, I mean,
conservatism, junk, paleo revolutionism.
The crazy thing is, Gio, that there are plenty of people where like all the like schizo conspiratorial thinking somehow led to the most dedicated plan trusting. It's like the most radical like belief in the goodness and competence of a single politician. It's like, yeah. Let me see here. Didn't have enough to arrest him. On July 2nd, a Canadian police officer found Herb sleeping in his car near Ontario Park. Gio, this is your fault. Yeah. Gio. The officer observed a number of items in the car, including an overnight bag, envelopes, newspapers, piles of other unidentified papers, and what appeared to be videotapes. The next day, police again found Herb. This time he was in the park by the water's edge with a .357 Magnum bullet hole in his head. His car had been emptied of all personal items. A search of the area yielded no evidence that Herb had disposed of any of the items that had been in his possession just the night before. None of his possessions were ever recovered or accounted for. What was said to be a suicide note was found. It was addressed rather bizarrely, "Attention, Canadian authorities." Around that same time, Baumeister's older brother, Brad, was found floating in a hot tub in Texas. Brad's death remains an unsolved mystery. Perhaps the Baumeister family just had a run of bad luck. The day after Herb Baumeister's body was discovered in a park, it was autopsied by Canadian authorities, who promptly announced that the autopsy report would not be ready for release for about a year. The .357 bullet hole in your head would one would think make it rather open and shut. So something else was afoot. Since some of the I-70 murders remained unsolved, Indianapolis officials were under intense pressure to investigate any possible connections to the Baumeister case, like all of those bones. Police had two key pieces of physical evidence that had been gathered from the scenes of the unsolved killings: a semen sample and a palm print. The semen sample, however, just sort of disappeared. With only the palm print remaining, a technician was duly dispatched to obtain a print from Herb's corpse, still in the custody of Canadian officials. What followed, purportedly, was a ridiculous series of errors. Oh, no. The technician purportedly returned from Canada with a print that was unusable. The official story holds that the print simply didn't take, but it was never explained why the technician got all the way back to the States before realizing that. He was sent back to try. This dude is just like going on vacation. He's stacking vacation time. He was sent back to try again, and once again returned with a print that didn't take. Not to be deterred, the technician was sent back a third time, only to find that the corpse had been cremated, destroying the last chance the authorities had to definitively tie Herb to the I-70 murders with hard physical evidence. Why officials would have repeatedly sent the same obviously incompetent technician has never been explained. Amazing. Though witness statements and circumstantial evidence, however, Baumeister was ultimately tied to at least one of the I-70 victims. No one, needless to say, ever stood trial for the unsolved I-70 killings or for the mass murder that occurred at Fox Hollow Farm. Herb was posthumously declared solely responsible for the deaths of the 4 victims whose remains could be identified. All were local gay men who had been reported missing. They were just 4 of at least 10 local men who had been reported missing after frequenting area gay bars over the previous 3 years. The police at the local press had consistently ignored and or downplayed the disappearances because, sounds like a problem that solves itself. Am I right, fellas? The Herb Baumeister story would not be complete without the mention of a colorful character named Virgil Vandegrift, the gayest name I've ever heard in my life, who played a prominent role in the Baumeister investigation. Vandegrift was a former sheriff turned private investigator. A private dick or a public dick? In the mid-1970s, he had been sent to the LAPD Academy for hypnosis training. His father reportedly dabbled in hypnosis as well. In 1977, not long after receiving that special training, Vandegrift worked on the case of Brett Kimberlin, the so-called Speedway bomber. The very same Brett Kimberlin resurfaced in 1988, claiming that he had been vice presidential nominee Dan Quayle's college drug supplier. Kimberlin was promptly I don't even think that that's like bragging. That's kind of lame. Kimberlin was promptly put into solitary confinement and cut off from press access. Vandegrift was hired by the families of 2 of the missing victims, both of whom felt that the police were doing next to nothing to find their sons. In August 1994, the aforementioned witness who survived a visit to Herb's house first talked to Vandegrift. He described Fox Hollow Farm and the strange man who had taken him there. One of Vandegrift's associates reportedly located Fox Hollow based on the man's description. For unexplained reasons, the associate obtained aerial photographs of the property that he presented to the witness for identification. The witness, who of course had never seen the ranch from the air, was unable to ID the property from photographs. As a result, there was considerable delay in identifying Herb Baumeister as the prime suspect. Why Van de Griff's investigator did not present the witness with surveillance photos of the property from the perspective he had actually viewed it is another of the lingering mysteries surrounding the Baumeister case. That could just be incompetence, that one. In November 1997, Van de Griff's secretary, Connie Pierce, who had worked closely with the witnesses of the Baumeister case, died suddenly at the age of 46, with all of her eggs fully dry. In the spring of that same year, bones were still being uncovered at Fox Hollow Farm. How do you feel about that, Sandbatch?
Well,
you don't believe any of it. You don't believe any of this. You don't believe that bones were ever at Fox Hollow Farm.
I'm not even sure Fox Hollow Farms is real.
Maybe there were only bones and no Fox Hollow Farm.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like much of a farm, right? All they were planting was bones. You're not going to grow anything. Come on, that's not how it works. We have 420 viewers at this moment, and if there's one thing we know about 420 is that that's the day of Hitler's birthday.
Well, since we got new audience coming in, because whatever their first choice of things to watch is over or canceled, you all should go buy my book and drive me to the top of Amazon's American
Tippity top. That's right.
So just like the Grateful Dead used to have a thing they would do in the 70s when they would right before they would play their song Trucking.
Okay.
They would say, Bob Weir would introduce it. He'd be like, straight to the top of the charts in Mendocino County and stayed there. Yeah. Amazing.
All right. Where are we? Chapter 17. We're just going to keep on trucking.
Keep on living on Reds, vitamin C, and cocaine.
That's right. And Placidil. In some cases,
I've never heard of that one. I think it would be really for Zoomers to get into drugs. Obscure
like Quaaludes.
Quaaludes, Quaaludes. Like
find some ludes, guys.
Yeah.
Let's see. Johnny Walton's a $5 super chat. If you plant bones, she'll grow babies, is what I hear. So true. So true. We do be plowing them fields, homie. We do be plowing them fields. Patsies and Assassin. I almost said pasties and assassins.
That's how I just read it.
It's a house of burlesque. It has always been my theory that for every person arrested and charged with multiple homicides, there are probably a good 5 more out there. Ted Bundy. Oh, we got a hero in chat. Gio says just bought Sandy's book. He just bought Sandy's book. Woo!
Hooray!
Woo! And you can be cool like Giant Gio, the only good Canadian, if you purchase Christopher Sandbatch's book.
At least he's the third Canadian.
He's who are the other two?
I don't know, but I can see
you just know.
Simple math shows me where on the report side where the country shows me what markets they're purchased in. Quite popular in quite popular in the United States. We got some Canadians picking up some Canadians. Several Sandbatchites in Belgium, which I'm always glad to see.
Sandbatchian purchases.
Yeah, I'm always going to the ground for the abstract concept of Belgium. I love Belgium. Belgium.
What a total non-place. Let's see here. All right. In the dark and ugly netherworld where violent crime and covert operations collide, there appears two general categories into which the large majority of those we label serial killers can be sorted: controlled assassins and controlled patsies. In this chapter, we look at what could be described as textbook cases of both of these recurring archetypes. We begin with the case of a man whom the New York Times referred to in December 2001 as the first of America's modern serial killers. Albert Henry DeSalvo, otherwise known as the Boston Strangler. The Boston Baked Bean Boy, I call him. I knew him when. Nearly 40 years after the infamous murders and almost 30 after the purported killer was permanently silenced.
Kids on the street are calling him barbecue.
It's the only good barbecue you can get in Boston. It is now being acknowledged by some of the law enforcement community that DeSalvo was innocent. What is not acknowledged even today is that DeSalvo was deliberately framed to take the fall for the crimes. The story generally put forth by those who acknowledge DeSalvo's innocence is that he willingly confessed to crimes that he did not commit, in the belief that he could make a good deal of money from his notoriety. The facts of the case, however, suggest otherwise. That makes no fucking sense because you're in prison for the rest of your life. So it doesn't matter how much fucking money you have. The facts of the case, however, suggest otherwise. At the other end of the spectrum are men like Arthur Shawcross, who began killing for the United States Army in 1968. A trained killer of the U.S. Marine Corps. The year after DeSalvo was convicted, it was nearly a quarter century before Shawcross was first convicted of homicide. There's little question that he was guilty of a number of violent crimes, first in the late 1960s, then again in the early 70s, and yet again in the late 1980s. There is some question, though, as to whether Arthur was acting alone during his various murder sprees. The third alleged serial killer profiled here is Danny Rolling, a man whose story has parallels to both Shawcross and DeSalvo, and which will apparently not be given a preamble of the same length as the other two. Anyway, Albert Henry DeSalvo. Kind of a cool last name, DeSalvo. Of the Salvo. It's just like, a fusillade kind of name. The purported Boston Strangler ranks as one of the most infamous of all the serial killers, despite the inconvenient fact that in the 4 decades since the notorious murders were committed, no one has been able to produce a shred of evidence indicating DeSalvo ever killed anyone. The task of manufacturing a case against DeSalvo was largely led by a legendary attorney by the name of F. Lee Bailey. Does that sound familiar to anyone else? There's a footnote. A minor role was also played by San Francisco attorney Melvin Belli, who Bailey consulted to on the case. It was not too many years later that Belli played a notorious role in the Zodiac case. He later became involved in the McMartin case and then later conferred with Richard the Night Stalker Ramirez and considered representing him. The thing is that it's just not, again, it is not particularly suspicious when, like, attorneys have a set of clients, especially high-profile clients who they tend to serve. Okay? Just, Anyway, F. Lee Bailey, who received a considerable amount of help from a cast of characters whose surnames should be familiar to any serious student of U.S. politics. Names like McNamara, Donovan, Mellon, Moynihan, and Bryan. Rockefeller? Yeah. Frank DeSalvo, Albert's father, regularly beat his wife and kids with his fists, as well as belts and a pipe. He once reportedly pulled a gun on his wife. Another time, he reportedly broke her fingers one by one as her young son watched in horror. Frank was also fond of bringing prostitutes home and having his way with them in front of his children. On one rather noteworthy occasion, he actually sold his kids as slaves to a farmer in Maine. Although the details of that transaction remain murky, family, friends, and social workers have confirmed that the incident did occur. The boy's mother spent nearly 6 months searching for her sons. Wow. I wonder if that farmer got a refund. Let's see here. Big Ben Korean something or other says, "Hey Geo, the Shape Store called. They want their cylinders back." I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what the Shape Store is, but I don't know why Geo's getting heat. But I'm sure Big Ben will explain the joke for all of the rest of us in class. Albert was first arrested in 1943 at the age of 13 for assault and battery with intent to commit robbery. He was sentenced to a reformatory, but his sentence was suspended. Later that same year, he was again arrested on the same charge and again convicted. This time, his sentence was enforced. He was paroled from the reformatory on October 26, 1944. 2 years later, he wound up back again for making an unlawful use of a car. Early in 1947, he was again paroled. In September 1948, Albert was inducted into the U.S. Army. He was just 17 years old and on parole, but Uncle Sam didn't seem to mind. DeSalvo first served from September 16th, 1948 to June 25th, 1951, where he was honorably discharged. Strangely, though, he re-enlisted the very next day and served from June 26, 1951 to February 15th, 1956, when he was again honorably discharged. Much of that 7.5-year stretch was served in West Germany, where Gary Heidnik was subjected to MKUltra experimentation not too many years later, and where Jeffrey Dahmer later served as well. While in Germany, Albert reportedly mastered the art of hand-to-hand combat and became a boxing champion. MKUltra would have begun sort of in the time period where he was there the second time. But yeah, it seems very early. John E. Walt for $2 says, "That's a long joke." Now I'm even more confused, but thank you for the $2. Let's see. On January 5th, 1955, while still in the military, DeSalvo was arrested in New Jersey on suspicion of carnally abusing a 9-year-old girl. The case was never prosecuted. In March, he was arrested again for the horrifying crime of loitering. For that offense, he was fined. 2 years later, didn't get fined for carnally abusing a 9-year-old. Did get fined for loitering. I wonder how much loitering cost in 1957.
I don't know. It's one of those crimes that is almost unknown amongst white people because we've used it like almost specifically to
yes,
to like
get rid of those kinds.
If they weren't doing anything else, they were probably standing around
just Vulpus persona loitering in a minor. Oh god. Oof. Anyway, 2 years later, in the spring of 1957, Albert spent 2 months in a VA hospital where he reportedly was treated for an unspecified problem with his left shoulder. Too much carnal abuse, repetitive motion injury. In the early months of 1958, he was arrested repeatedly for the crime of breaking and entering. The first arrest was January 8th, the second on February 15th, and the third on April 18th, just 2 days before Hitler's birthday. He was convicted all 3 times, and each time received a suspended sentence. Come the fuck on. It's kind of amazing because, you see the charts, right? You see the charts of like, did you know that if you arrested people after their third, that if you just like kept people in prison after their third arrest, it would get rid of like 87% of crime? And you realize that actually is like, it's just like, it's just true. It's just true no matter what group of people the criminal's from. You should just probably enforce crimes enforce the law against criminals. Anyway. 3 years later, on March 17th, 1961, DeSalvo was again arrested for breaking and entering. If you've been arrested this many times, if you just get arrested every month, how seriously do you take that, right? You just don't take it seriously. It's like, oh, what are you going to do? Arrest me? And then not make me face any punishment? You're just going to like inconvenience me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. 3 years later, on March 17th, 1961, DeSalvo was again arrested for breaking and entering. Once in custody, he reportedly began spontaneously confessing to a wave of notorious sexual assaults that had been dubbed the Measuring Man attacks. Oh, that is... okay. I need more explanation for why it's called that, because I just imagine someone being like, look how precisely long my penis is, right?
You slid into your Jewish voice to say that.
Well, I mean, whenever you're quantifying something, you know, it's just they're good counters. They're good counters. He was promptly sent to Westboro State Hospital for a psychiatric examination. On May 3rd, he went to trial on multiple counts of breaking and entering and assault and battery. He was convicted of the charges, but in a rather remarkable turn of events, the judge opted to sentence him to just 2 years for each offense, with all of the sentences to be served concurrently, which means he serves 2 years. Even more remarkably, the same judge later reduced the already bizarrely lenient sentence, and in April 1962, Albert was released after serving less than 1 year of his multiple convictions. 2 months later, a 56-year-old Latvian immigrant named Anna Slessers became the first victim of the Boston Strangler. Wow. I mean, you just look. The first thing is he had to be out by then, because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to strangle 56-year-old Latvian immigrant Anna Slessers. Anna was strangled with her housecoat cord and had a gaping laceration to the back of her head. She had been sexually assaulted with an unidentified object, and could have been a penis, in her apartment, and her apartment had been searched. As would be the case with all the murder scenes, there was no sign of forced entry, other than, indicating that the killers may very well have known the victims. Nina Nichols, age 68, was the second victim. Nichols was strangled with 2 nylon stockings. Helen Blake, 65, was likewise strangled with 2 stockings on the very same day. Both women had dried blood in their ears, and both suffered genital lacerations from a sexual assault. He was really into grannies. That is wild. I mean, and imagine how old a 68-year-old looked in, I don't know, when was this? The mid 60s? He was violating women born in the 19th century. So like, yeah, like they'd seen some shit. So this guy was like really, really going for gilfs. Let's see. Just a week and a half later, on July 11th, 1962, Margaret Davis was found dead in a hotel room. She had been manually strangled, the automatic strangling machine not having been invented yet. Other than the victim's age, 60, there was no indication that her death was connected to the deaths of the other women. Margaret had checked into the hotel with an unidentified man. The couple had registered as Mr. and Mrs. Byron Spinney. Davis was also known to use the name Ethel Johnson, Ann Cunningham, Winnie Hughes, and Toby. Exactly what her business was with her male escort is largely a matter of speculation, but there is little doubt that is what got her killed. Okay, so was she the prostitute or was he the prostitute? I mean, I guess it would be pretty fucking difficult for a 60-year-old woman to be a hooker, but then again, could be. Yeah, her real name was Kunta Kinte. After a brief lull, the killings resumed on August 19th. Victim was Ida Urga. Awful name. Who was strangled both manually and with a pillowcase. Like the earlier victims, Urga had genital injuries, but unlike the others, the 75-year-old woman was left posed, her splayed legs facing the front door. Just 2 days later, Jane Sullivan was strangled and left partially submerged in her bathtub. She had 2 stockings around her neck and matted blood on her scalp. The 67-year-old was found on her knees with her posterior jutting out of the tub. Really, just old women. Just old women. The next victim, Modeste Friedman, was found on October 13th. She hardly fit the victim profile that had previously been established. Friedman was just 37. 37 is comparatively young, and was the first black victim. She was both strangled and brutally bludgeoned, her head reduced to a bloody pulp. She was also the first victim found outdoors in a yard. She had a wooden stick protruding from her vagina and an alarmingly high blood alcohol level. Normal for her, no doubt. Her body was nude when it was discovered. On December 5th, the killer claimed his next victim, another black girl, this one just 20 years old. She was found with a stocking and a half slip around her neck. There was no sign of genital injuries, but there was a semen stain on the rug. It was left by someone other than Albert DeSalvo. I mean, that could have just been there, you know? By that time, the city of Boston was in a full-scale panic. The killings of young black victims did nothing to assuage the fears of the better residents. Sent a clear signal that all women, regardless of age or ethnicity, were fair game. The demand for dogs, locks, and guns skyrocketed. Getting a dog just because you're afraid of being strangled is a little extreme. Like what happens when, the fear passes, right? There's just like a run on the pound. Patricia Bissett was the next victim claimed by the strangler on December 31st, 1962. But like the previous 2 victims, Bissett was young, just 23. But like the earlier victims, she was white. She had a blouse and 3 stockings tied around her neck, and her bed covers were discreetly pulled up to her chin. She had intercourse and showed signs of injury to her rectum. She was also carrying a 1-month-old fetus. Rest in peace. On March 6, 1963, Mary Brown became the next strangler victim. Like the first batch of victims, Brown was in her 60s. Unlike the others, her death was attributed to bludgeoning, though she was also strangled and stabbed. Okay. She was found with degenerated sperm in her vagina and a kitchen utensil buried up to the handle in her left breast. I'm going to guess that was a knife, not like a spatula, which would be way harder to bury up to the handle in her left breast. Let's see. The next victim is killed. Fact check. Live fact check from the chat. Randall Shirker says they apparently did a DNA test in 2013, and they claimed that the cum on the rug was DeSalvo's. He loosed his own salvo. Let's see.
Every once in a while, you get a really good one. It bothers me. There's 433 of you out there, and we do this show every week. We don't always put Cannibal in the title, and I see a lot of you out there seeing Cannibal in the title.
Yeah, that's right. And are you saying that my deliberately provocative title did its job? Good job, Cap. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we need to get more into TEO.
What TEO? To what? Timeline engagement title optimization?
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Last week, the title of the episode was "To Serve Man," which is a classic reference, classic sci-fi reference, right? Also about eating people, but that one didn't do the numbers. You got to be more explicit. You got to be salacious. You can't just make references.
This is X in 2026. You got to beat him over the head with it.
You got to beat him over the head with it, just like Alberto. You got to be like Alberto. You got to strangle them with their own stockings. You got to fuck the grannies.
We're competing. We're competing with e-girls and Jews.
We're competing with, yeah, that's right. We're competing with the Zionists and the anti-Zionists, and all we want to do is talk about good old wholesome American homicides, and mind control and psyops. That's LMD.
The only true crime podcast that caters to men.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Although if we keep talking about all of these murdered grannies, we are in danger of getting some female listeners. I'm just gonna say. Let's see. Hey, if you're out there, hey, female listeners, if you're out there, slide into Sandbatch's DMs. He's available, and he might murder you. Who knows? Who knows?
I would never.
It could be dangerous. You are ruining your own Riz.
You know what is wild though? I do have what I do have is a collection of like
human skulls.
No, I have a collection, like a literal Charlie's Angels tier collection of like not e-girls, but women that I've been involved with that have strong opinions about my work and are always offering to fix it for me.
Wow.
This is great.
Wow.
I mean, they're wonderful. They're wonderful.
Vulpus Persona sends $5. Thank you very much, sir. And says Yins earned it. Thanks. That's very nice. A true Yinzer. A true Yinzer, if there ever was one. That's right. Let's see. Big Ben, a man who ought to know, says my sources say Sandbatch is packing. Absolutely packing. Absolutely packing. He's just, he's had to get a wider inseam, Anyway. Let's see here. Full scale panic, something. Hold on. Next strangler victim, first batch. God damn it. Okay. Yeah. Degenerate sperm. Okay. The next victim, killed on May 8th, was stabbed 17 times in and around her left breast in what was described as a ritual pattern. Beverly Salmons was also slashed 4 times about her neck, about which a scarf and 2 nylon stockings were tied. Though it was the knife wounds that had killed her. There was no evidence of rape or sexual assault. He was spent by that point. After a 4-month break, the purported strangler struck again. The victim was Evelyn Corbin, whose age was listed as either 51 or 58. Oh, Evelyn. Very common vanity among the fairer sex. She
was really pushing the edge.
She really was. She had 2 stockings around her neck and 1 around her left ankle. There was blood on the scene, including in both of the victim's ears. Semen was found in her mouth, and traces of dried semen were found elsewhere. She's probably just a poor housekeeper. Couldn't even keep track of her own age. 2.5 months later, 23-year-old Joan Graff was strangled with a leotard leg and 2 stockings. Do leotards usually have legs? I thought leotards had I thought it was like a onesie with sleeves.
Leotard's just what my ex-girlfriend, who was really into astrology, called me.
Nice. Tish. Hold on. Let's see if do I have that? I don't think I have that. Damn. Why don't I have that? Why don't I have I feel like I should have a rim shot, like on my.
How do we not have that one? How do we not have that?
Yeah, I don't know. Here, there you go. That's what you got. That one. Let's see. Geo says, have you guys seen the AI skeletons that travel to different periods in history? What the fuck? What the fuck? Terminator? Terminator? What if you spent a week as a cowboy in the Wild West? What if you spent a week as a warrior in ancient China?
This is called Quantum Leap, Geo.
Yeah, no kidding. Geo.
If I was a warrior, you know what I've been doing lately, though? And I've really been into this, Geo. I've really been into this. I've been into Chinese poetry. So, Song and Tang Dynasty, I think we could really use some cowboy poetry matched up with Tang Dynasty forms.
Okay.
Yeah. Dropping straight off the bestseller list.
Does yeah, no shit. Does Chinese poetry take into account the tones of the words?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's just like a whole.
I had an actual Chinese poet trying to explain it to me last night, and I kind of like.
Oh, what was her name?
No, it's a dude.
Doubt. That's your handler, Sandbatch.
It's the Chinglican.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Listed 58, something, 2.5 months later, Joan. All right. She had been raped and her vagina was lacerated and bloody. The final victim was Mary Sullivan, the youngest, at just 19. She was killed on January 4th, 1964, the only non-granny. Her death scene was the most gruesome of them all. She had 2 scarves and a stocking around her neck, and a broom handle protruding from her vagina. Did her like Dahmer. Her breasts had been mauled. She was posed in a sitting position.
Did her like Dahmer should be my second merchandise item. Did you see, by the way, Chad, if you're really into spending money, and especially for the ladies that want to show everybody how mentally ill they are at the cafe, I took some of those Thorazine advertisements from last week and I turned them into merchandise you can purchase.
Where?
On Fourth Wall. I made a Fourth Wall store.
Oh, did you know? Yeah. Why have we not integrated it with this show? Because we can do that.
I literally just remembered that I did it tonight. We'll have it up and running.
We'll talk about it.
We'll have it up and running next week.
Amazing. All right.
Maybe we'll do a did her like DDD did her like Dahmer.
Oh my god! I did that completely on accident. Yeah. Oh my god. Amazing. All right. So let's see. She was posed in a sitting position on her bed with fresh semen dripping from her mouth. A macabre greeting card was propped up by her foot. A macabre greeting card? Like you went out and got a greeting card? Huh. There were no further murders attributed to the Boston Strangler, even though Albert DeSalvo remained free for 10 months after the death of Sullivan. 2 weeks after the discovery of Sullivan's body, Massachusetts Attorney General Edward Brooke took over the investigation of all 14 murders, which had been being handled by 5 different city police departments and 3 district attorneys' offices. Brooke assembled a task force and assigned Assistant Attorney General John Bottomley. Wow, change that.
Who makes these names up?
Who makes these fucking names up? Fucking Thomas Pynchon wrote this. What the fuck? Even though Bottomley had no experience whatsoever with criminal law, I'm sure Bottomley had plenty of experience. Considering that the Strangler case was arguably the most high-profile criminal case in the state's history, it was a very unusual assignment. Look, if you want someone who has no prior experience, right, to get a lot of experience, assign them to multiple homicides simultaneously. You know? It's like, oh, you want to have experience with 14 homicides? There we go. Trial by fire. You know, just like Wiseman or whatever the fuck his name was with the last guy. It was like, you get 6,000 bone fragments. Here you go. You're going to be experienced at the end of this. So, all right. Bottomley had been involved in telepathic experiments conducted at NASA. Such experiments, it should be noted, were and are one of many covers used to veil various aspects of the intelligence community's MKUltra program. Actually, I'm pretty sure that the telepathy programs were only briefly under that same rubric. I think that the clairvoyance programs are actually a completely separate track whose name I am somehow forgetting right now. Not Blue Book. The other one. What's the fucking other one? Blue Beam? The other the fucking like
well, the Project Bluebeam is the most like well-known one, I think.
Yeah, the clairvoyance and clairaudience one. Anyway, Bottomley's mother was said to be fascinated with ESP. At one point in the investigation, it's so funny that McGowan's going into like the schlub they got to investigate. Okay. At one point in the investigation, I mean, okay, makes sense. Like, good on McGowan for being thorough. Bottomley's mother was said to be fascinated with ESP. At one point in the investigation, the task force leader brought in a famed psychic, Peter Hurkos, who a few years later helped Roman Polanski investigate the Tate murders. Hurkos identified a suspect who had, it was claimed, already been considered by the task force. The suspect subsequently voluntarily, according to reports, committed himself to a mental hospital and was quickly forgotten. According to some reports, he later surfaced at Bridgewater State Hospital. Shirker, I think Bluebeam was I could be misremembering. I'm not really into the Isle of Mouse section. Sex Freakman sends €5. I didn't realize Freakman was €1. Ladies, trust me, this guy's a good catch. No degenerate sperm in Sandy. He was never once accused of murder, and this man wouldn't grape a fly. Packing way too much. He wouldn't swat a fly with his dick.
I'll settle down with a good one. I will settle down with a good woman as soon as I find one. Literally, as soon as I find one.
That's a long way to say no. Big Ben says, "Will you, Geo?" So true. So true. Randall Shirker says,
"Make an honest e-girl out of her."
Randall Shirker says, "Listen, I just need confirmation. The aliens are in fact hot anime babes." Yeah. All right. Among those working under Bottomley.
It took a second for it to seek it.
Those working under Bottomley.
Imagine Dave typing that one, and he was probably like, it did lit a cigarette.
Yeah, he was just like, we're a medical and psychiatric committee and special officer James Mellon of the Boston Police Department. Also deeply involved in the investigation was the Boston Police Department's new commissioner, Edmund McNamara, who had formerly worked for the FBI. John Donovan, the former chief of the Boston Police Department's homicide squad, was the top dick on the case. 7 months into the investigation, Brooks' office wrote up a progress report that stated at an early stage of the coordinated deliberations, it was concluded that certain homicides bore little relationship to these so-called stranglings or to each other. That rather self-evident fact was later swept under the rug. In the fall of 1964, Albert DeSalvo was arrested and charged with various crimes that he allegedly committed during a series of sexual assaults in the state of Connecticut. Those crimes, dubbed the Green Man assaults, had been perpetrated during the 10-month period following the death of Mary Sullivan. We are to believe that DeSalvo, having successfully committed 14 murders, decided to stop killing and instead cross state lines to commit sexual assaults. Albert was tastes change, tastes change. Albert was arraigned on November 3rd, 1964 for the Green Man attacks. He was not, at that time, among the more than 300 strangler suspects listed by the task force. There was no evidence of any kind that suggested that he was involved in any way with the brutal killings. 3 days, he was just a humble sexual assailant. He was just a humble serial rapist. Okay? He wasn't the kind of guy who would be involved in a string of brutal killings. Right? I want to know how old his victims were. Why aren't we saying that? Why aren't we saying that, David? Because it ruins your theory? Are you sure? Anyway, 3 days after his arraignment, he was sent to Bridgewater State Hospital, where he remained until December 10th, when he was sent back to jail. On January 14th, 1965, DeSalvo was again sent to Bridgewater. 4 days later, he was joined there by a man named George Nasser, who had been arrested for a murder committed on September 29th, 1964. The victim had been shot 6 times at close range and then stabbed in the back. The getaway car used in the crime had reportedly been stolen from near prestigious MIT in Cambridge. The later abandoned adjacent to the exclusive Phillips Academy in Andover. The vehicle was registered to an unidentified Navy lieutenant, as were the 2 handguns found under the front seat. Nasser had previously served 16 years of a life sentence he received for an earlier murder conviction. He had been paroled in 1961. Following his release, he reportedly worked as a reporter at a hospital attendant, and also taught Sunday school, and occasionally was allowed to take over the pulpit to deliver sermons. In his free time, he reportedly participated in between 17 and 30 contract murders during a period of gang warfare in Boston. Sweet. Nasser is frequently described as a genius and a master manipulator who quickly took Albert under his wing at Bridgewater. So tight was his control over DeSalvo that Albert's own family complained that they were unable to visit him without Nasser being present. Man, this guy, total pro. Okay. A committee was quickly formed to raise legal fees for Nasser. His innocence was loudly proclaimed by his supporters, including a minister and a local talk radio host. The 2 most trustworthy people I can think of. As legal counsel, Nasser retained F. Lee Bailey, already a national figure at age 31. The flamboyant attorney and former Marine pilot was known to carry a gun and enormous rolls of cash. Nice. It was Nasser who purportedly first obtained a confession from Albert DeSalvo. He then arranged for DeSalvo a meeting with Bailey, even though Lee was not DeSalvo's attorney of record. That was only the first breach of legal ethics by Bailey. There would be many more. Bailey promptly contacted John Donovan and obtained classified information on the case, reportedly to check the veracity of Albert's confessions, though it appears that the details of the murder were in fact fed to DeSalvo by Bailey and Nasser, with assistance from CIA-connected hypnotist William Jennings Bryan III. Are you fucking kidding me? Wow. Okay, big footnote on Williams Jennings Bryan III. We're going to call him Trip from now on. Bryan was later connected to 2 other rather notorious individuals, not to mention William Jennings Bryan. One of them was Sirhan Bishara Sirhan, the purported assassin of Robert F. Kennedy. Bryan was known to boast of having treated Sirhan, a hypnotist known of having treated a guy who had no memory of assassinating RFK. Okay. Oddly enough, the name Albert DeSalvo is written repeatedly throughout Sirhan's diaries in what appears to be a display of hypnotic phenomenon known as automatic writing. Researcher and author Jonathan Vankin quotes a former U.S. intelligence officer who tested Sirhan. Everything in the PSE, psychological stress evaluation charts, tell me that someone else was involved in the assassination, and that Sirhan was programmed through hypnosis to kill RFK. Like other players in this sordid cast, Sirhan had a keen interest in the occult. Researchers have connected him to both the Rosicrucians, a secret society claiming origins in ancient Egypt, and the ever-popular Process Church of the Final Judgment. Bryan was also linked to Candy Jones, the famous model who told her tale of being mind-controlled, being a mind-controlled courier and possibly assassin as well, in The Control of Candy Jones. Not long after publication of the book, Bryan was tied to the Candy Jones case by journalists investigating her claims. He soon thereafter turned up dead in a Las Vegas hotel room. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Interesting. I'm surprised I'm only now hearing about William Jennings Bryan III, but all right.
Yeah, that was an Easter egg.
Big Easter egg. Good old Trip, who was brought on board by Bailey on the spring equinox. Good job, McGowan. Bryan's questions to DeSalvo while under hypnosis were loaded with incriminating details of the crimes. The confessions that resulted from the collaboration between Bailey, Nasser, and Brian, using information supplied by Donovan, were taped by Bailey and turned over to police. They were, to put it bluntly, blatantly fraudulent. Many of the crime scene details recounted by Albert, who was said to have a photographic memory, were incorrect. No physical evidence corroborated his accounts, and no witnesses could place Albert near any of the crime scenes or connect him to any of the killings. The problem was not that there were no witnesses available. There were, in fact, a number of them, but none who identified Albert as the man they had seen. At least 3 of the witnesses described the suspect as a light-skinned black man with combed back hair. None of the composite sketches created from witness descriptions resembled DeSalvo. Any reasonably skilled interrogator, through a thorough questioning of the suspect, could have quickly revealed the confessions for the shams that they were. No police, however, were ever allowed to question DeSalvo, who was kept under constant guard. On April 8th, 1966, just 3 weeks before Anton LaVey declared the dawn of the age of Satan, and how many days before the birthday? Just 12 days before the birthday of Hitler, Assistant Attorney General Bottomley abruptly resigned his post, taking with him the original confession tapes. Seems like not a thing you get to take as a souvenir of your time. He quickly went to work as an attorney for DeSalvo's ex-wife, and also contracted out his services to Fox as a consultant on the screen version of Gerald Frank's The Boston Strangler. Seems like a conflict. Bailey had convinced DeSalvo to sign an agreement with Frank to pen the disinformational book, which declared Albert guilty of not only the stranglings, but of some 2,000 rapes as well. Very busy man. Bailey served as a witness to that guy rapes more than I jacket. Like that is truly, truly impressive. Bailey served as a witness to the signing of the release, and Bottomley ordered his task force to cooperate fully with Frank. The book was an immediate bestseller. The widely read work and widely viewed film reinforced in the public's mind the idea that the killings had been solved. Bailey, meanwhile, pocketed the advance money that was supposed to go to DeSalvo, prompting Albert to file complaints at the State Bar Association, whose complaints were consistently ignored. The money for the film rights likewise ended up in Bailey's pocket. Amazing, amazing job. Good job, F. Lee. In mid-April 1966, Bailey and Brooke agreed to bring DeSalvo to trial to face the charges arising from the Green Man case. By that time, several members of the task force had left to work for Bailey, which amounted not to them having switched sides, but to them having taken a more active role in the railroading of the designated patsy. The key players decided not to bring Albert to trial for the stranglings, no doubt reasoning that the evidence was so glaringly fraudulent that it would not withstand public scrutiny, even in a carefully controlled trial. The public, however, was clamoring for the resolution of the case. Luckily then, Bailey came up with a way to indirectly try Albert on the murder charges by presenting what had to be the most preposterous and unethical defense in the history of American jurisprudence. As Bailey himself described his strategy, I wanted the right to defend a man for a robbery and assault by proving that he had committed 13 murders. Your Honor, he couldn't possibly have stolen these candy bars because he was busy strangling this elderly woman.
That's a good one.
In other words, rather than defending his client against the relatively minor charges that he was actually facing, Bailey opted to proclaim DeSalvo's guilt on those charges, but argued that he should be found innocent by reason of insanity based on the fact that he also committed 13 murders. Now, that's a hell of a defense. The trial commenced on January 1967 with Albert standing before Judge Cornelius Moynihan. That is a fucking name as well. Cornelius Moynihan. Accused of rape, robbery, and the commission of unnatural acts. We need to bring that charge back. Unnatural acts. We would both go to prison for this show. Let's see here. He had already been convicted by the media and the public of far more serious crimes. The first witness called by the state was a Bridgewater inmate who knew both Nasser and DeSalvo, and who, strangely enough, listed F. Lee Bailey as his attorney of record. Okay. As would be the case with all the prosecution witnesses, Bailey did not bother to cross-examine his own client. In fact, he made no effort whatsoever to rebut the charges DeSalvo was facing. Instead, he presented a ridiculously flimsy case for DeSalvo's guilt in these Strangler killings, a case that would never have stood up to cross-examination. That was not really a concern, however, since when it is the defense attorney presenting the state's case, there isn't anyone to conduct a cross-examination. Just days into the trial, a recess was called as a mysterious meeting took place between Bailey, prosecutor Donald Kahn, okay, and Judge Moynihan. The purpose of that meeting has never been revealed. Closing arguments, such as they were delivered on January 18th, and the jury was then sent off to deliberate. They returned the same day. There was never any question about what the verdict would be. The jury was not sequestered for the trial, and media headlines, not to mention Hollywood's offerings, regularly proclaimed DeSalvo to be the Boston Strangler. The trial was routinely referred to as the Strangler trial, despite the fact that Albert had never been charged with those crimes. The book and movie, released before the trial even began, had ingrained the official story into the public's mind. The defendant's own attorney had openly and repeatedly proclaimed his client's guilt. The jury was well aware of what it was expected to do. The end result was that DeSalvo was found guilty of robbery and assault by the jury and guilty of murder in the court of public opinion, which is, by all appearances, exactly what was intended. Albert was given a life sentence despite the fact that the charges he was convicted of would normally have earned him a maximum 25-year sentence with the possibility of parole after 10. As for Nasser, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death, but the sentence was never carried out. He remains incarcerated to this day. Can we Jamie up Nasser's present location? It's probably dead. Just 5 weeks after his conviction, DeSalvo, perhaps the most feared and closely guarded inmate in America, managed to escape from Bridgewater. Another wave of panic and fear gripped the city. Albert, however, was quickly recaptured. His two brothers were implicated in the escape and indicted on charges of aiding and abetting, but they never went to trial for their alleged crimes. On January 4th of the following year, Albert's appeal of his conviction, for which there was more than adequate grounds, was quickly denied. In 1973, Albert DeSalvo was stabbed 16 times while in the infirmary of the maximum security prison at Walpole, Massachusetts. Footnote, 2 years later...
George Nasser died in 2018. Yes.
Wow. Yes. 2 years later, in March 1975, another of F. Lee Bailey's former high-profile clients, Charles the Pied Piper of Tucson, Schmid, was stabbed to death in prison as well. Schmid sustained some 20 wounds to the face and chest and died 10 days later. He had been convicted of the murders of 3 young teenage girls, the first of whom was killed just 5 months after the Boston Strangler claimed his last victim. Charles Schmid stood just 5 feet 4 inches tall and was somewhat odd in demeanor and appearance. Yeah, he was a fucking goblin. But he was intelligent and charismatic and had an uncanny ability to attract both women and this is such a long footnote, and devoted young followers, not unlike Charles Manson. Also, like Manson, Schmid had a passion for singing and playing the guitar, and he claimed to possess psychic powers. Several of his followers were complicit in either committing or covering up the 3 murders. 2 of those followers pled guilty to various charges and served prison time. The subtext of the Tucson murders included talk of a teenage drug and prostitution ring, the involvement of a shadowy group referred to as the Tucson Mafia, and Schmid's quickie Mexican wedding to one of the 15-year-old admirers just a couple weeks before his arrest. At one bizarre juncture of the investigation, suspect Schmid was arrested for impersonating an FBI agent after he reportedly had been questioning people in San Diego, California. He was supposedly in San Diego working on behalf of the Tucson Mafia. Strangely enough, he had contacted the FBI not long before leaving for California. Arrested in November 1965, Schmid faced first first trial in February 1966. He was quickly convicted of 2 of the murders, although his trial was marked by the usual irregularities, one of which was that the testimony concerning the 3rd murder, which Schmid had not yet faced trial for, was allowed into evidence. In fact, the 3rd murder was a key element of the state's case, with prosecutors arguing that the 2nd and 3rd victims were killed to cover up the murder of the first girl. It took the jury just 2 hours to return the guilty verdicts, which earned Schmid a death sentence. In June 1966, F. Lee Bailey made his entrance into the Schmid case. As Smitty's defense attorney for the 2nd trial, Bailey, who had just finished obtaining DeSalvo's confessions and was awaiting trial on that case, was brought on board to the Schmid case by writer John Gilmore, who was working on a book on Schmid. Shortly after the 2nd trial began, again with the usual irregularities, Bailey and his co-counsel convicted a reluctant Schmid to enter a guilty plea to the lesser charge of 2nd-degree murder, thereby short-circuiting the trial. Schmid received a 50-year to life sentence. The following January, Bailey returned to Boston to deliver his Craven performance in the Albert DeSalvo trial. Meanwhile, Charles Schmid wrote a letter to the judge asking for a new trial and accusing his attorneys of coercing him to take a plea deal. The judge agreed to hear the motions, but Schmid then inexplicably withdrew his request. In 1971, Schmid's death sentence was set aside when the state of Arizona temporarily abolished capital punishment. Schmid subsequently escaped, but like DeSalvo, he was quickly recaptured. John Gilmore, the son of an LAPD officer and former child actor, went on to write a book about Charles Manson. Years later, he penned a book on the 1947 murder of Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia. Gilmore's book appears to be little more than an effort to close the Dahlia case by pinning the notorious unsolved crime on a very unlikely patsy. Playing the role of F. Lee Bailey, Gilmore possibly acting in collusion with elements of the LAPD, including famed homicide detective Jigsaw John St. John, what a fucking name, purportedly obtained confession tapes from the alleged suspect. Those audio tapes, however, do not actually exist. All that Gilmore has ever produced is a photograph of 3 cassette tapes and transcripts that he likely penned himself. Before the alleged suspect, whose confession were entirely uncorroborated, could be picked up for questioning, he conveniently burned to death in a seedy Los Angeles hotel. The Black Dahlia case remains officially unsolved. Okay, that was a crazy footnote. That was quite the long one. Haven't seen one like that since the spectacle of the false flag. All right. The previous evening, okay, I'm going to reread the first sentence that prompted that massive fucking footnote. In 1973, Albert DeSalvo was stabbed 16 times while in the infirmary of the maximum security prison at Walpole, Massachusetts. The previous evening, he had placed an urgent call to Dr. Ames Roby, a prison psychiatrist who had spent a considerable amount of time with the inmate. DeSalvo had told Roby that he wanted to meet with the doctor and a reporter early the next morning. Roby tells what happened next. He was going to tell us who the Boston Strangler really was and what the whole thing was about. He had asked to be placed in an infirmary under the special lockup about a week before. Something was going on within the prison, and I think he felt he had to talk quickly. There were people in the prison, including guards, that were not happy with him. Somebody had to leave an awful lot of doors open, which meant because there were several guards that one would have to go by. There had to be a fair number of people paid or asked to turn their backs or something. But somebody put a knife into Albert DeSalvo's heart sometime between evening check and the morning. Richard DeSalvo had a similar recollection. He was going to, at some point in time when it was right, he was going to talk and name names. Heads were going to roll. He said real big important people were going to. Their heads were going to roll when he opens his mouth. Richard DeSalvo, who spoke to his brother by telephone on the evening of his death, has also said that Albert may have been drugged that night. It would explain why he was unable to fend off his attackers since he was otherwise quite proficient in the art of hand-to-hand combat. 3 inmates were indicted and twice faced trial for the murder, which prosecutors rather preposterously portrayed as motivated by a desire to prevent DeSalvo from entering the prison drug trade. The first trial ended with a deadlock jury and the second with a mistrial, after which the charges were dropped. Following his death, a manuscript that Albert had been working on was conspicuously missing from his personal effects. A copy of the autopsy report was handed to the DeSalvo family by, of all people, George Nasser. And so ended the case of the Boston Strangler, except that questions surrounding the killings persist to this day, 40 years after the last victim was killed. Even as these words are being written, surviving family members of both Albert DeSalvo and his last reported victim, Mary Sullivan, are clamoring for the investigation to be reopened. Sullivan's body was exhumed in October 2000, and a forensics examination revealed that the condition of her corpse was not consistent with DeSalvo's confessed version of how she was killed. Her remains also yielded 2 DNA samples, one from a semen stain on her pubic hair. Neither of the samples were a match for Albert DeSalvo, whose body was exhumed in October 2001. I mean, she'd been dead for so long. How could you possibly? All right. Anyway, George Washington University law professor James E. Starves, who is leading the new forensic investigation, proclaimed, "We have evidence that is strongly indicative that Albert DeSalvo was not the rapist murderer of Mary Sullivan." He promised a blockbuster report once the investigation has been completed. Let's Jamie up that report. Do we have that? There is
give me some search words.
Well, it would be.
What are we thinking?
Well, just look up Boston Strangler James E. Starrs, Starrs. There has never been a shortage of suspects in the case. Near the top of the list is George Nasser, considered by many in the law enforcement community to be a serial assassin. Nasser bore a striking resemblance to one of the composite sketches of the Strangler. He was tentatively identified by some of the crime scene witnesses. Investigative officer Susan Kelly has identified other suspects as well. She has also put forth a convincing argument that many of the murders were unrelated. In the Sullivan case, police had 2 suspects before DeSalvo cleared them by confessing to the murder. The more likely of the 2 was her former boyfriend, William Ivey. Police had built a strong case against him, and he had failed 2 polygraph examinations. Nevertheless, Ivey was never prosecuted. Patricia Bissett's death was probably also unconnected to the others. The prime suspect in her death was her boss, a defense contractor named Jules Rothman. Bissett, who had a flair for foreign languages, frequently traveled out of state with Rothman, with whom she was having an affair. It was likely Rothman's child that she was secretly carrying. It was also Rothman who discovered her body and spent time alone in her apartment with the corpse before police arrived. A photo album was missing from Bissett's apartment, as were numerous loose photographs and almost all of her personal correspondence, which she was known to save. Rothman was very close to being indicted when DeSalvo confessed. Sophie Clark's killer was likely Albert Williams, the son of a Cambridge minister. Williams had received a medical discharge from the army, and he was known to suffer from blackouts. He had a long criminal record and was said to be a bisexual sadist. But I repeat myself. Like Ivey, he failed 2 polygraph examinations. The more intriguing suspects identified by Kelly are 3 men who had connections to several of the killings. They were perhaps the real serial killers. The 3 had been friends and classmates at Harvard. One was Bradley Waring Shrewsky, the son of a controller of what Kelly refers to as a prestigious New England prep school. Very likely Phillips Academy, considering that the Shrewsky family lived in Andover. Andover and Phillips Academy were just a few miles from 2 of the death scenes. Bradley was first incarcerated on September 22nd, 1951, for the Oedipal crimes of savagely beating his father and attempting to rape his mother. Distinctly Oedipal crimes. Since 1979, he had been in
the Nick Land essay where he just repeats over and over again, "We want to kill our fathers and we want to fuck our mothers." That's totally a thing. It's
Since 1979, he has been in and out of various mental hospitals. When not institutionalized, he reportedly worked as a grave digger. Convenient.
Funny job you got there, buddy.
Friends with Shrewsky. It's great. I'm getting paid to practice. Friends with Shrewsky was fellow suspect William Axel Lindahl, the son of a Boston cop. Lindahl's mother died when he was just an infant, and he was subsequently raised by his physically abusive father. At Harvard, he joined the Naval ROTC, where he tried to strangle his drill instructor. He also tried to strangle his girlfriend. He later obtained a teaching job at Lake Forest Academy in Illinois. He was said to be fluent in 14 languages. not possible. In 1970, the wife of one of his Harvard friends, who had long suspected Lindell of being the strangler, turned up dead. Her husband was tried and convicted for her murder. That same year, a reporter from the Boston Globe, who was another of Lindell's college chums, was also accused of killing his wife. The final member of the trio was Peter Howard Denton, the genius son of a doctor and a nurse. Denton won a congressional appointment to West Point and from there went on to Harvard. His first arrest came on April 19th, 1961, just one day before Hitler's birthday, when he and 4 other Harvard men were found to be in possession of high explosives. What he and his cronies were planning to do with the explosives on the eve of the Fuhrer's birthday. He actually said it the second. McGowan actually said it the second time. 3 years later, Denton wound up in a place well known to Albert DeSalvo and George Nasser, Bridgewater State Hospital. Still later, he set up a drug lab and was reportedly a heavy drug user himself, with particular fondness for hallucinogens. Violent murders seemed to follow Denton wherever he roamed. He lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, when a string of girls turned up dead there, and he was in Los Angeles during the reign of the Hillside Stranglers. It is extremely unlikely that the new official investigation will reveal the truth about the Boston Strangler. Meanwhile, the state of Massachusetts recently refused to release evidence to a private investigative team, claiming that 40 years after the fact, the case is still considered an ongoing investigation. So did you find anything from Mr. Starr's
He's dead.
Okay, but he didn't find anything out about the Boston Strangler?
He just seems to have exonerated
DeSalvo of that particular one.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's pretty narrow scoped.
Well, too bad. Too bad for DeSalvo. You know, if he was exonerated for all of those crimes, he'd come back to life.
Yep, that's how it works.
That's right. That's right. Well, before we leave, here's Saint Expedite Presses, which is Sandbatch. Here's his
which is fucking Sandbatch. Yeah.
Which is Sandbatch. You can go to saintexpedite.press. It's STEXPEDITE.press and purchase Tyrant in the House, Thorazine. It's a notebook. It's a notebook, and it's got some sick ass Thorazine shit on it. You're gonna love it.
I'm gonna have some more. I think I'm gonna make a Ritalin t-shirt.
This is a stock photo of an e-girl. Stock photo of an e-girl. All right, you can buy this for $17, or you could buy.
Did you notice? I charged more for it than I did for my book.
I was gonna just mention that, or you could buy Sandbatch's book of poetry for $16 or something like that.
Yeah, and if you all do that one, leave me a review. I was like, whenever I published this, I was like, sort of like letting it. I was like dimly, like I was like sort of suppressing my like sort of somewhat excitement for it. But I think if I get a couple of reviews, we could do something really funny and like land me in the best selling category for quite some time, which I think would be funny.
It would be very funny. So that's it for this evening. We've done all the shilling that we need to do. Check out Drive Time Movie Night live on X.com, formerly Twitter, and Rumble this Wednesday, where Mike of Pole and I are joined with by Charlemagne of the OGC, and we're gonna watch something fun. So we will see you next time on Library of Mass Destruction.
You're discouraged from questioning and thinking critically. You must accept the word of the leaders. They make you feel guilty if you do question or argue. Your environment is often controlled, cutting you off from friends, family, school, previously held beliefs. They want you to become dependent, provide a poor diet, poor health care, little sleep, and long exhausting hours of work to make you physically weak and lower your ability to think clearly. Subtly, your self-confidence gets undermined, and your self-image or sense of identity is changed. The leaders control channels of communication. They cut off or put down outside sources of information. Then they bombard you with what they want you to think. They use strong peer pressure, playing on your desire to be loved and accepted. The leaders may promise rewards if you obey them and punishment if you don't, but they alternate harshness and leniency in order to confuse you. The leaders manipulate language, giving special meanings to words that only insiders understand. This is to make you feel like you're part of a special, important, or elite group, and that outsiders are inferior, dangerous, or doomed. You have to confess your shortcomings, mistakes, or misbehavior, sometimes even if these things never really happened. And meanwhile, your time and activities are tightly controlled. You don't have much privacy or energy or time to think because you're too busy doing monotonous, repetitive tasks. The leaders try to control you and even your sexuality, everything about you. They want to exploit you for their own enrichment, their own power or grandiosity. If they succeed, you will declare your loyalty unto its leaders, rejecting your old values and way of life. Without realizing it, you will have been changed into a person who is being controlled by a totalist cult.